Throne of the North. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, A Transaction with the God of Light. Ryan looked at the Marcus B. Finn. The Marcus was so embarrassed to be stared at by Ryan. Ryan suddenly put away all his anger and couldn't help sighing. My lord Marcus, the current relationship between the Empire and the Church is like water and fire, which are completely incompatible. As the pioneer of light in the Empire, you bear the faith and duty of the God of Light. You also have the noble status of a great noble of the Empire, the governor of the North Wind Province, and the Marcus. How could you create such an ugly thing to promote the glory of the gods? Don't you think this is a blasphemy against the God of Light? Don't you see what kind of responsibilities and rights you have on your shoulders with this thing? Show it to those peasants. Do you think they can connect this thing with the sun in the sky, the almighty God of Light? Is it worthy of the great God, the Master of Light? Ryan pointed to the yellowed book. Marcus Northwind thought about it. If you ignore the extraordinary power in it, this thing looks no different from something that has just been fished out of a toilet and dried in the sun. After that, Ryan said to the Marcus B. Fang slyly, during this period, your preaching efficiency has not been high, right? Do you think it is possible that it is because this thing does not look good? If you change the material of this book to the same as this one, wouldn't it be easy? The Marcus B. Fang finally spoke. Impossible. The dawn doctrine of the Church is the Bible. It is made of paper that can only be produced by soaking in holy water. There is no possibility of duplication, and Teacher Brainer said that the paper of the Church cannot carry soul magic. Ryan blinked. But this thing is too bad for spreading the faith of the God of Light. If you can't copy the materials of the Church, then change it, Ryan said and struck while the iron was hot. The Brainer mage you mentioned, Marcus, should be a powerful soul magician. He took out a blank book from his arms. The book was very thick, but there were few papers. Each page was as hard as a hard stone slab. Unlike the dawn doctrine of the Church, which was bright and magnificent at first glance, the one Ryan took out was full of antiquity and vicissitudes. Although the appearance was still not very attractive, this breadth was enough to make everyone who saw it think that it was a valuable object, and it contained the depression of time. How about this material, Marcus? Very good. Marcus B. Fang didn't want to admit it, but still said. How about replacing this kind of book with a material that spreads the faith of the God of Light? Think about it, what does the Church spread? It is the dawn. Every night, the darkness dissipates, the dawn dispels the darkness of the world, allowing people to no longer fear and enjoy the warmth and harvest of the day. But what about your book? There is nothing unique about it, it can't attract believers. Ryan pointed to the two books and commented. This is true. The belief in the God of Light that the Empire came up with was just to give the royal power a legitimacy. Whether it is in terms of time rush or effort spent, it cannot compare with the ancient Church. The dawn that the Church talks about is the morning of every day. The so-called best moment of a day is the moment of waking up in the morning. In the doctrine of the Church, the dawn dispels the darkness of every night. So the light of every day is as brilliant as the morning sun. Everyone thinks so, but everyone knows that the sun has always been the sun, the God of Light. He is eternally hanging in the sky. He is ancient and great, and time cannot wash away his power. He has been watching this world since the wild times. In the ancient and long time, he has favored his believers. As Ryan's voice gradually got better, Marcus B. Fang looked at the third book that Ryan took out and felt more and more that this book was really suitable for the existence of the God of Light. He is just like Ryan said, eternal and immortal, hanging high in the sky that mortals cannot touch. Marcus B. Fang couldn't help swallowing. Baron Ryan, you are right, the morning light is fresh, but the Master of Light, the great sun, is eternal. He is eternal, and comes from an ancient, wild world before humans were born. This book carries the ancient breath of the God of Light. Marcus B. Fang's eyes were fanatical, but he soon became frustrated. Just one book is not enough. To spread the faith of light, a huge number of carriers are needed. Ryan's eyes lit up for a moment, then he gritted his teeth and said with heartache, I asked 20 skilled craftsmen in the frozen territory to spend half a month hammering and weaving this book. It was originally intended to be given to my father's mount, Mr. Amber Dragon, as a gift, but since the Empire needs it, then give it to the Marcus. If it can really help the Empire fight against the spread of the faith of the Holy See, I think the war in the South will be much smoother. You may not know, my father, Earl Clayton, also sent the Earl's army to the south. I heard that the war over there is not going well. How could the Marquis of the North Wind not know? He accepted the gift handed over by Ryan. Don't worry, Baron Ryan, I will send this book carrying the ancient breath of the God of Light to the Cathedral of Light outside the imperial capital, and the teacher will judge whether it can play the role we want. If successful, the Cathedral of Light will directly purchase all the materials from the frozen territory, but in that case, the frozen territory cannot be sold to anyone else, otherwise the royal family will pursue it, and I will not be able to help you get away with it. Don't worry, Marcus, I just want to make some money. You know, I have never been a person who likes adventure. Leaving the castle, Ryan walked towards the gate of the alternate world. Along the way, he thought countless things in his heart. Did Marcus Bifang really not know that there was a feather dragon army in the Andor Kingdom? He didn't react at all, or did he know about it but thought it posed no threat to him? Or did I reveal too much information in one sentence, and Marcus Bifang could only capture a part of it? No matter how you look at it, it's the first possibility, and the book woven with birch bark. It took half a day to make, so it was still a bit tasty, but Mage Luna said that this kind of bark can indeed serve as an excellent material for soul magic. There are also her crude soul magic methods on it, which will definitely be noticed. But these are two different worlds, an exchange between two mages who practice soul magic. If it succeeds, given the pressure the Empire is facing from the Church's beliefs, it will definitely make a lot of money. The cost of this thing is pitifully low. The Church is very rich. If the Empire wants to fight against a belief spread by the Church, it should not be stingy, right? Civilians and slaves are realistic. When they wake up every day, they don't sigh about the morning light and the scorching sun, but whether they can have enough food today. The Marquis of Bifang's preaching efficiency has been slow during this period because he can't give them food, nor can he help them dispel the fatigue after a day's work. Why not eat meat? The Marquis of Bifang can't see it, but the Empire has so many wise nobles, they must understand the key. If the Empire wants to fight against the Church, it must do this, it must. Ryan's eyes widened, and he suddenly understood a lot. The gods are asleep, and they haven't woken up and left miracles for more than 100 years. Damn it, this is fucking an economic war. There are only two kinds of miracles that can be compared to miracles. One is another miracle. The other is fucking pie in the sky. Commonly known as, the village has made a woman, come back soon. And this is like advertising, it takes a lot of money. The Cathedral of Light that the Empire has built must be very rich, and it hasn't been spent yet. It doesn't matter who you give it to. No, you have to give the Marquis of Bifang some benefits to get this indicator. Chapter 252 Roar of Another World. Master Ryan understood. At this moment, the Light of the Empire has money but nowhere to spend it. As a devout believer of the God of Light, how can he sit back and watch? He must maximize the use of the wealth of the God of Light. That birch bark book is worth 100 gold. 1,000 gold, how can the faith of the God of Light be cheap? After entering the alternate dimension world, Ryan, who regained his composure, took out the Dawn Doctrine. He had not made a move outside. In addition to the need to use this thing to despise the faith of the Marquis of the North Wind, another reason was that he was worried that what he did outside would attract the attention of the Church. But it was different in the alternate dimension world. Even if it noticed something was wrong, the Church would not know the truth, and the Marquis of the North Wind was blocking the door to this alternate world. Let me see how much this thing of yours is worth. In the depths of Ryan's pupils, there seemed to be a vortex like an abyss, and it was like the bloody mouth of some terrifying creature, swallowing the line of divine language on the surface of the Dawn Doctrine book cover. The next moment, Ryan felt the feedback. Spirituality. 19,050. Divine nature. Blessing of the deer spirit. Blessing of the horse spirit. Ryan's eyes showed surprise. Although the spirituality panel was still rough, it was too intuitive. Looking back at the Dawn Doctrine, the divine language runes on it were still there, but the power that could make people understand its meaning at a glance disappeared. The book no longer glowed slightly. At the same time, in a field somewhere in the North Wind province, Archbishop Adriana opened her eyes. That baron absorbed the glow of the dawn and became a believer of my lord. The missionary next to him brightened his eyes. That baron actually has this talent. It seems that my lord has gained another devout believer, who may be able to help the Church in its missionary work in the Empire. He is indeed a favored one of my lord. Can we ask him to build a church in the frozen territory? He can become a priest himself. No, this is the Empire. If the Dawn Church appears, he will die. He is the son of a great noble, And the frozen territory is also in the north. No, when the time comes, Baron Ryan will naturally tell the world that he is a believer, and now he needs to hide it. This is painful. The Archbishop fell silent, and then said, "It is indeed painful, but for the sake of my lord's faith, it is worth it." Baron Ryan, no, Father Ryan, will understand the difficulties of the church. His devout faith will not be tarnished by this. I will write a letter and you send it directly to the frozen territory. I hope he can sacrifice his life for justice and not be troubled by this pain. The light of my Lord will sprinkle a dawn in the darkest place to illuminate his way forward, the glory of the dawn. As soon as she finished speaking, all the missionaries hummed devoutly. We will not die in the land of winter, Archbishop. Can the murderer who killed Father Buffett be found soon? Ryan was a little happy. A copy of the Dawn Doctrine brought him nearly 5,000 spiritual income. In this way, the share required by the great wizard McKen in the wild world can be increased again. Ryan was happy for many reasons, including that his soldiers' strength could be strengthened again. And the northern war horses being cultivated in the wild world could also receive more divine blessings. That is a mount that can accompany a knight throughout his life, that is, the land version of the Griffin mount. The northern warhorse will definitely become the third perfect mount on the continent, in addition to the dragon and the griffin, but I'm afraid that the 19,000 spirituality can't be squandered by the great wizard McKen for a long time. I don't know how many Dawn Doctrines the church can let me absorb. I hope there will be as much as this one. Although he thought so, Ryan also knew that it was impossible for every copy of the Dawn Doctrine to bring him 5,000 spirituality. You have to know that a life that swore loyalty to him can only provide a little spirituality. A hero-level follower like Brand only brought him 10 times the income of an ordinary person, that is, 10 spiritual points. 5,000 is a bit huge in comparison. Anyway, find a way to buy more of this stuff from the church in the future. The little joy that just came from the wealth of the God of Light was dispersed by this gold-eating crocodile. Fortunately, Ryan still has new joy. In the other world plane, the Blue Lion tribe. Is this all you have gained during this period? Ryan looked at the 6 large boxes in front of him, 4.5 of which were filled with gold or mixed with golden spots. The remaining wooden box contained 35 pieces of amber jade, ranging from the size of a human head to the size of a thumb. Ryan guessed that perhaps this box would be more valuable than the other 4. Yes, Baron Ryan, the tools you brought are so useful. The slot said happily as if asking for credit, and then looked at Ryan carefully. Friend Baron Ryan, our Blue Lion tribe wants 50, not 30, of that kind of blessing of power. Do you think it's okay? Divine blessing is Ryan's biggest trump card to control these natives, and it is also the reason why he does not have to worry about these natives getting involved with other nobles. 30 is a bit too much, Cao. You know, this power comes from the great gods, just like we can come to this world. In fact, it is also the self-salvation of your world. Do you know, your world is dying? Cao was rarely silent, which surprised Ryan. What happened? Cao hesitated for a while, and then said, not long ago, my tribe came to tell me that the gods roared in the depths of the mountains and forests. He hasn't come out for a long time. Oh, Ryan had previously guessed that the gods in the mouths of the natives were a powerful demon beast. What does this mean? Cao's eyes showed extreme fear, and he murmured, he will eat many, many beasts, even eat the mountains. This is his food. Cao looked at Ryan. Friend Baron Ryan, we only need 20 blessings, but please give us some powerful weapons like the weapons of the warriors behind you. This is our gift. Chu pushed the boxes towards Ryan. Ryan laughed. Of course, in order to ensure the safety of the Blue Lion tribe, I can prepay part of the price of the next gift to you in advance. If time permits, the Blue Lion tribe can also get the support of my army. The last time he came here, Ryan said that his army would not enter the Blue Lion tribe. This time, he broke his words. But the Blue Lion tribe was very happy because they invited Ryan in. Chapter 253, The Fear from Warcraft, The Shock from Another World. 100 stag knights armed to the teeth. They have a complete set of knight suits, including full body armor, lances, knight swords, winter forest beast bows, one-handed shields, and northern war horses. God knows how envious the eyes of the natives were when they looked at these things. If it weren't for the fact that the magic products in the frozen land territory could not be produced now, he could have equipped his knight attendants with more means and power. Ryan stayed in the Blue Lion tribe for a whole day. Although the tribe had arranged the most gorgeous and clean house for him, it was still difficult to evaluate. Maybe you should pay attention to hygiene, Otherwise those nobles will not be willing to accept you. Ryan certainly heard a lot during this day. The natives don't know what it means to keep their mouths shut. It's okay outside, and their vigilance makes them say nothing, but inside the tribe, they say whatever they want. So Ryan knew that the Blue Lion tribe and the soldiers of those tribes did not get along well during this period. Why? Because whether it is these native tribes or those noble soldiers, in the process of hunting and searching for the wealth of this world, they will not follow the original division of the nobles. If you don't follow the rules, then it is doomed that you will have conflicts with each other. Because of their different origins, the soldiers did not regard the natives as human beings. Most of the natives still regarded them as demon invaders from another world. Even in the Green Lion tribe, Ryan saw many natives kneeling in the mountains and praying for the gods to appear and eat them. It seems that the so-called god is an omnivore. The ignorant natives thought that it was a god, but if it was true, it would be too barbaric. Maybe I can imitate those people and do some miracles. When Ryan thought about this, he suddenly heard a roar that echoed for a long time between the peaks at the end of his vision. It's the messenger of the gods. The turbid eyes of the old man in the Green Lion tribe became bright. The magic beast Green Lion? Ryan thought to himself. The natives couldn't hear it, but he seemed to hear the tension and fear contained in the roar of the magic beast. There is a taste of being fierce on the outside but weak on the inside. He was afraid, and used his loud and majestic voice to drive away some kind of threat. As the roar of the Blue Lion sounded, more roars in the distant mountains and forests resounded in the other world of this mountain forest, all from the monsters. As for the ordinary and huge wild beasts, they seemed a little weak under the voices of these monsters. But it was not like that. Outside the Blue Lion tribe, the roar of a big black bear resounded through the mountains and forests. Thousands of flying birds rushed into the sky in fear and circled, not knowing what happened. And this black bear, with a back height of nearly 5 meters, was just an ordinary wild beast. That Blue Lion is a little far from here. Ryan looked around, and the natives of the entire Blue Lion tribe were trembling. Not only them, but even the servants guarding Ryan subconsciously clenched their weapons. Because the earth was shaking, thousands of beasts in the mountains and forests made fearful cries at the same time. They fled in panic, but they didn't know where to escape. They ran out of their familiar territory beyond common sense and ran around in the mountains and forests. They were so huge and there were so many of them that the ground was shaking because of them. The beasts are rioting. In this situation, even if the army of the entire North Wind province arrives, it can't be suppressed, right? Ryan swallowed his saliva. The army he was talking about naturally included all the extraordinary ones. The number of beasts in this mountain forest world seemed to be much more than he had guessed. The magic beasts have the deepest perception. They sense something, and then the ordinary beasts in the entire mountain forest world also felt it. Has the god mentioned by the Green Lion natives really awakened? Does it want to eat to fill its stomach? Ryan was somewhat fortunate that he did not run around with the army, but chose to stay in the Green Lion tribe. Otherwise, at this moment, those frightened and crazy beasts would see this human army, and they would probably no longer be afraid of the soldiers because of greater fear, and thus fight madly. The essence of hunting is to use wisdom and tools, but if one party no longer follows common sense, then what will appear as a primitive and barbaric fight? The beasts in this world are huge, powerful, and have sharp teeth. It will be difficult for the 100 soldiers Ryan brought with him to be safe. On the contrary, although the indigenous tribes are weaker than them, these indigenous tribes have lived for many years and survived. The location of the tribe they chose must be the safest. This is a place that has been tested with blood and death again and again. Ryan's guess was right. In another day in the Blue Lion tribe, there were less than 10 attacks by wild beasts here. They were all relatively weak beasts. After Ryan asked the soldiers to hunt them, most of them were given to the natives of the Blue Lion tribe. The natives were like this. When the food appeared, most of their hostility towards Ryan's army disappeared. At least, there was no old thing kneeling in the mountains and forests to pray for the gods to appear and eat them. Time came to the third day. Roar, a resounding roar that could be heard in most corners of the mountain forest world appeared. The shaking of the earth became more obvious. Ryan saw a huge rock collapse on a hillside in the distance, revealing a piece of shiny magic crystal vein. But he didn't have the energy to think about the value of those magic crystals now, and his face was a little pale. He felt an extremely terrifying pressure. Not the strength, but the status. The status of the gods. There are really gods. Ryan was shocked. He had always thought it was just some ferocious monster. Even if it was comparable to a dragon, he would not be afraid. At most, he would bring the strong men of the North Wind province to kill it. If it really doesn't work, Master Ryan now has some connections in the south, and he can always kill it. But now he is not sure. The vibration lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, as if something huge was trampling in the mountains and forests. After spending 6 days in the Green Lion tribe, Ryan finally felt that the outside was calming down. "Brand," Ryan shouted, and then called the Green Lion tribe's slot. "Find a few people to join us and lead the way. I want to go and see, not only the magic crystal mine exposed on the mountain, but also the so-called god. He must know what it is. There is a reason why the great wizard Maken persisted for decades. The biggest role of the Northern Warhorse is its resistance to ice and snow, but the rest is that they are not embarrassed when shuttling between mountains and forests. Although they can't run at high speed, they are not bad at ordinary walking." Following the various courses he saw along the way, Ryan came to a mountain that was broken by 1/3. Yes, this mountain, which is at least 300 meters high, was torn off a large piece of about 1/3 of its volume by something sloppy from the middle of the mountain. Many of the magic crystals were broken and no longer complete, and it was obvious that a lot of them were swallowed up. The surface of magic crystals is very similar to crystals such as crystals. They do not need to be polished to have a clear appearance. Although this sharp edge is rough, it is the root of the magic crystal to keep the internal magic power. Just like the stability of the triangle, the appearance of the magic crystal can also stabilize the internal magic factor, so it is liked by mages. But now, most of these magic crystals have become tiny fragments. It seems that they have fallen from the gaps between the sharp teeth of the bloody mouth of some huge creature. Ryan looked around. The ground was messy, but several large footprints were very obvious. Chapter 254, Hunting the Magical Blue Lion. Ryan watched the footprints disappear into the depths of the forest, and other noble armies gradually arrived in the distance. Barren, facing Ryan, these soldiers still respected and feared him. After all, few nobles would come in person in this alternate dimension, so Ryan, a noble, could certainly be said to be the person with the highest status in the alternate dimension. "What happened here?" asked the leader of the soldiers, who seemed to be a lord. The breath of him and the soldiers behind him was unstable. On the way here, it seemed very uneasy and they were coming to kill. "What happened?" Ryan pointed to the broken mountain. "Isn't it obvious? There's a huge monster eating Gulu." After hearing the answer, the lord swallowed and looked at the mountain. Similarly, the sparkling magic crystal could not suppress his fear. "How big is this?" "The dragon is huge, but the dragon's head is not so big. Even some giant python monsters open their mouths much larger than the dragon." "Who knows?" Ryan turned around and led the army away. He felt something was wrong. A beast that could bite off such a large piece of the mountain should not leave such a small footprint. And now that it has calmed down, it seems too bizarre to be able to cause a riot in the entire mountain forest world. Even the frost dragon can't do it. Thunder is loud, but the rain is small? Ryan turned his head and glanced at the mountain, with some guesses in his mind. Maybe, he is just a lucky guy. The one who is blessed by God is not necessarily a human. For a moment, Ryan couldn't help but compare it with the Marcus of the North Wind again. The riot in the forest of the other world has many benefits for Ryan. For example, he knows the active range and approximate location of the demon beast Blue Lion. Standing on a big rock, looking up, the sunlight has long been blocked by the layers of tree canopy. The leader of the Blue Lion tribe, Xiao, raised his head and sniffed his nose, then quickly ran to a dead leaf and picked it up with his hands. Soon, he pointed at a pile of feces with a look of surprise and shouted to Ryan, "Baron friend, I found the feces of the messenger. This is a good thing. It can." Needless to say, the magic beast is full of treasures, and so is the feces. "Very new, it's not far away." Brand's eyes narrowed slightly under the visor. Behind him, Ryan had already put on the mithril armor. It was not that he wanted to be so flashy, but there was no knight armor better than the mithril armor in the entire frozen land. A second-level magic beast can be hunted by a centurion. The danger of a third-level magic beast will not be too great, but if it is a fourth-level magic beast, all of us may die here. "Find it out," Ryan said in a deep voice. He didn't believe that this world where the gods were dying could breed so many powerful magic beasts. The blue lion can be compared with a black bear, the yellow python and dozens of other magic beasts, so it is difficult to be a fourth level with a combat power comparable to the Sky Knight. Because in that case, Wouldn't there be too many Sky Knights in this other world? There are so many nobles in the North Wind Province, but the number of Sky Knights is no more than 10. That realm is a qualitative leap, which cannot be provided by resources or even a little divinity. Around, hundreds of soldiers and more than 20 natives dispersed. The people of the Green Lion tribe have special feelings for the Green Lion, but the natives are simple. They are as savage as wild beasts and eat everything. Time passed, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. The leaves above the head shrank, and the sunlight in the sky pierced through the gaps in the towering trees and fell on Ryan's silver-white armor. The reflected light was like a sharp arrow. At this moment, in a shadow somewhere 100 meters away from Ryan, because of the reflection of the light on the mithril armor, it finally attracted the attention of the predator. With a deafening roar, the green figure swept in like a gust of wind. "It's right around me." Ryan was terrified. They had been searching for more than an hour, but they didn't find the blue lion hiding not far away. It had long noticed the arrival of these humans and was waiting for the opportunity to hunt their king. Ryan was undoubtedly the target. 100 meters, you are really careful, but at this distance, are you looking down on me too much? The deafening roar was accompanied by a strong primitive fishy wind. Ryan recovered from the shock of the lion's roar in an instant, which was of course due to his experience of the power of dragons and gods. His right leg was slightly bent, and the wind swept over. Ryan didn't care about the soldiers around him and drew out the snow dragon roar from his waist. The sword came out, as if the sharp friction of the dragon's roar brought the extreme cold light, adding the power of the knight's combat skill heroic spear, and the blood and fighting spirit brought by the 3 breathing methods practiced to the Silver Knight. In the mountains and forests, a faint dragon roar resounded after Ryan's blood and ki were completely boiled. He took a step forward, and then slashed at the green in the wind with the sword. The sword light collided with some sharp objects in an instant, and the huge force pushed Ryan back more than 10 meters, but at the same time, his strength was also not small. The sharpness of the knight's long sword and the power of combat skills caused a large amount of blood to fall in the void where he was before. Boom! Ryan rolled a few times and knelt on one knee on the stone with his long sword. His mithril armor was still bright and beautiful. Obviously, the blood spilled not far away did not belong to him. Roar! A blue lion with flowing mane and bloodthirsty and violent eyes rolled into the gap between the trees more than 20 meters away. Its front paws were wet with blood, and it limped, somewhat shocked by Ryan's huge strength. It's so small, Ryan was a little surprised. The beasts in the other dimensional world were all huge, but the appearance of this blue lion was much more delicate than those beasts. Its length is at most 2.5 meters, and with its tail it is only a little over 3 meters. Its back is at most as high as Ryan's chest. Such a small size does not seem to be a product of this world. No, maybe it can refine the divine power in its body, which leads to its body not becoming huge. After all, not every life is as perfect as a dragon. The larger it is, the more limited it is. This is what a monster should look like, and the gods of the other plane world cannot change it. This is why the soldiers didn't find it. The blue lion is a little small. The shouting around was approaching frantically. Hundreds of soldiers surrounded them from all directions. They left their war horses far away. In this mountain forest, they could only exert more strength by being down to earth. While the blue lion was hesitating whether to fight or escape, Brand, who was charging like a stag, had already jumped up and slashed at the blue lion with a knight's long sword in his hand. They were a little far away before, and even the 10 attendants around Ryan didn't react, which means that Brand was the only one who might have reacted at that time in this army. But he was also looking for traces of the blue lion, which led to Ryan having to face it alone. Don't damage its skin. This kind of hair is more valuable than the finest silk. It will definitely sell for a good price. Ryan stood there with a long sword in his hand. Hundreds of servants had already rushed towards the blue lion. The latter whistled a strong wind from its mouth, cutting the surrounding rocks and trees like a sharp blade, but it was not easy to break the armor on the soldiers. His previous contact had confirmed that this blue lion was within his guess. It was a 3rd-level magic beast. It was just because of its divinity that it was stronger than a normal 3rd-level magic beast. But my current strength is not inferior to most of the Golden Knights, Ryan thought with some surprise. The 3rd-level magic beast should be stronger than most of the Golden Knights. Chapter 255, The Second Generation of Demons and Bribery. In the distance, Cao was shocked to see that 100 soldiers, led by Brand, were constantly compressing the territory of the blue lion. He was shocked. He thought it was a bloody and tragic fight, but he didn't expect that the end of the battle would not be so long. For Brand and the 100 squire knights who practiced superb skills, they all mastered the skills of killing, and killing was often limited to a certain moment. There was no so-called you come to test the water with 50 moves, and I will come to see the situation with 100 moves. From the beginning, the real fight was to kill the opponent in the next moment. Even though the blue lion was a magical beast, it was powerful. Even Brand, who was full of blood and ki, could not beat it in strength. In addition, it had the magic of wind attribute, the whistling wind and wind blade, and the speed of blessing. It was not the opponent of this army. 1 minute, it only took 1 minute for the squires to force the blue lion to the limit. No matter how fast it moved, there was not enough space for it to move. The front of the army was like a forest. It could cut down a tree that 2 people could hug together, but it could not break the metal armor on the soldiers. The most important thing was that one of its claws had no power and was always bleeding. Most of its strength had been lost. After all, its front claws were its most effective means of attack. The only thing that could support it now was magic. As a magic beast, it had natural spells in its body and could be released without chanting. But it only helped it to hold on for 30 seconds. At a certain moment after 30 seconds, Brand handed the knight's long sword into the bloody mouth of the blue lion. The wind was still surging in the opponent's throat. It was releasing a desperate spell, but it had no chance. The knight's long sword pierced through the upper jaw of the blue lion and pierced out from the back of its head with red and white things. Then Brand's palm took off the handle and stepped in front of the blue lion, grabbing the upper and lower jaws of the blue lion with both hands. The muscles were swelling, the armor was slightly deformed, and the stone under his feet was shattered at this moment. Brand's face was flushed under the visor, and the huge force in the roar tore the blue lion's head from the corner of its mouth. This powerful monster that was pierced by the knight's sword and still alive is now completely dead. Hutchie Brand was panting heavily. If he was alone, it would be a life and death battle, and the victory would be a miserable victory. However, the forest was rioting, and the blue lion could not drive the beast and fell into a situation of being beaten by a group. Naturally, Brand just gasped. "Don't be like this. I was careless this time. I didn't expect the intelligence of this monster to be so high." Ryan came to the front of the blue lion and looked at Brand. He would not blame the soldiers for being the first to be attacked. In fact, he was acting. Just look at the other nobles in the North Wind province. How many people entered the alien world to hunt in person? Only Baron Ryan. Other nobles stayed in their stable territories, bullying the maids and teasing the slaves. Baron Ryan, however, was running around the world. Since he had made the choice, it was expected that he would encounter danger. Ryan even enjoyed this kind of excitement. He came to the other world this time for gold ore. Only when he came in person could he open the portal to the other world of Svidiferi and bring the things back to the frozen land without anyone noticing. But seeing so many grand scenes, isn't it a kind of spirit that surpasses other nobles? He is a noble, but the first nobles became nobles from commoners. Was it just extraordinary power? Many of those legends did not have noble status. Noble is not a derogatory term, but a commendatory term for brave men and those who are admired. The soldiers were repairing, and several attendants were seriously injured, and their bones might be broken. However, after Ryan tied them up with templates and cloth strips, and then took out the healing holy water, the soldiers' eyes were fine, but the eyes of the natives were about to pop out. What is the most in the native tribe? The old, weak and sick are fine, because they have long died. Only the disabled are the most. The world of the forest has primitive cruelty. Even if the bones of these native barbarians are hard, they are not as hard as so many beasts. The miracle that Ryan wanted has now been achieved. The soldiers with broken hand and foot bones are alive and kicking after a few minutes. If this is not a miracle, what is it? Ryan finally saw the reason why the church can stand firm. Their foundation is the most common people. With this kind of healing method, it is no wonder that the Empire has spared no effort to develop life magic. Among the magic academies in the imperial capital, 5 out of 10 are magicians who practice life magic. Other things are really not as good as the church. Wild beasts are lurking in the gaps of the forest in the distance. Obviously, the movement here has attracted many guys who are watching, but looking at the body of the blue lion, the beasts are also afraid in their hearts and can only watch from afar. I found it. Ryan was observing the blue lion, playing with a precious magic beast crystal core in his hand, and heard a shouting voice from a distance. Turning around, a native of the Green Lion tribe ran towards this side, shouting. He held a spear in one hand and a forearm-long green lion cub in the other hand. The latter bit his hand with its teeth, and his face was distorted with pain even with the animal skin protection. That's why he was shouting, "It hurts." Roar. There was an angry roar in the distance. Before Ryan could speak, Brand had already rushed out with his soldiers and soon came back with the body of a lioness. This green lion looked much bigger, almost twice the size of the Warcraft green lion. Ryan grabbed the green lion cub and saw the native's animal skin armor that was bitten through, deep into the bone. Ryan didn't hesitate, and a blessing fell on the native's head. As for the rest, the native barbarians have strong physiques, and this kind of injury will recover in a few days. Didn't you see that the tribal leader on the other side didn't feel anything? This kind of injury is common for the natives. The value of holy water should be very expensive. The blessed native was naturally ecstatic. He felt his own strength and turned his head to Cao. The eager challenge in his eyes made Cao feel the loss of his majesty. Bang, bang, bang. He used his head to hit the native until his head was bleeding. The latter finally gave up the idea of challenging the leader. The other natives looked at each other with ridicule. They all came here like this. It turned out to be the second generation of the head demon. Ryan was delighted. He grabbed the back of the blue lion's neck and threw it to the soldier beside him. Metal armor is good for the little monster to grind its teeth. But the mithril armor is not very cost-effective. Monsters should be raised in poverty and gnaw on black iron. A few days later, in Lion County, looking at the weak and wounded troops rushing out of the gate, the Marquis of Bifang hurriedly ran over here. Seeing Baron Ryan come out safely, the Marquis was also relieved. In the south, the death of a noble is extremely serious. It is almost imprinted in the genes of the imperial nobles. Ryan is the only fifth-class noble who has entered the alternate dimension world. He does not want him to die in the alternate dimension world, whose portal is in his territory. But looking at the magical blue lion next to Ryan and the pile of beast corpses behind him, which were obviously frozen by some means, he became jealous again. Baron Ryan, you are so lucky. You can pick up so much meat in one trip. The beast meat in the alternate dimension world has been highly praised by the nobles during this period. Some nobles are even willing to spend a lot of money to buy some beast meat that they have never seen before. My Lord Marcus, you are a noble favored by light. Of course, you have a part of my spoils. Ryan originally wanted to say that it was okay for you to go in, but the words on his lips turned into a smile, and then he happily took out a part and generously gave it to the Marquis of Bifang. Look at that indicator. Oh no, it's the belief in light. The letter has been sent to the south. I think Baron Ryan, you are right. Light is ancient and has existed since the barbaric world, and it is not updated every day. Marquis Bifang was also very happy to get so many good things for free. Chapter 256 Receiving and Writing Letters. Frozen Territory. Ryan was thinking about whether he could increase the manpower and send miners to the other world to mine gold and amber jade. But after thinking about it, he gave up. That place is on the front line between the natives and the nobles. Once large-scale mining is carried out, it will easily attract attention. At that time, the gold mine will not be something Ryan can defend alone. Take it slow. Find a way to increase the conflicts between the indigenous people and the nobles in the other dimensional world, and then gain the right to speak in the other dimensional world. The development of the other dimension should be stagnant in a short period of time. The nobles suffered heavy losses due to the riots in the mountains and forests. We can take this opportunity to make a fortune, but is this Blue Lion tribe really so stubborn? I have blessed them with so many warriors and given them so many weapons. It has been so long, and they still can't react to next other indigenous tribes. Should we change to another one? A new batch of weapons has been sent to the kingdom of Andorra. I don't know how the war between the Grand Duke and the southern nobles is going. I hope it won't be too intense. We have to transfer back some Catman assassins. Although we don't know which one of the two earls it is, the war between the Empire and the Church has spread to the North Wind province, and there may be trouble next. The Catman assassins in the frozen territory can also prevent the secret means of the two. Ryan had a headache, and the blood and energy burst out in his hand, turning the note into ashes. These things can be recorded to clarify the next plan, but they can't be kept forever. But turning his head, Ryan was even more helpless when he saw the civil problems sent by Atria. The frozen land territory was developing in an orderly manner. There was no problem in this general direction, but the small problems that arose from it were troublesome. For example, some civilians had accumulated considerable wealth, They found Steward Beard and wanted to repay the money they owed to the Lord Baron Ryan over the years. This part was not small. For example, the houses they lived in at the beginning, such as land and food, were all given to them by Ryan in the name of loans. These civilians obviously did not want to owe the Lord money. When they had money, they thought about paying it back. Ryan certainly would not do anything like usury in this regard. It was how much it was. The key was that if they did not owe money, those civilians would probably not work so hard to open up the wasteland. This was what Ryan did not want to see. We have to draw new pie. Ryan gave suggestions for the remaining small troubles, and then expressed hesitation about the final deslavery. People must have classes, which can increase cohesion. As slaves at the bottom of the class, they naturally belonged to the property of the nobles. In some cases, a closed loop was formed in the noble territory. For example, in the current frozen land territory, the status of the lord is higher than that of the rich, and the status of the rich is higher than that of most civilians. The civilians feel that they are much better than slaves, so they feel happy. Slaves are the property of the Lord. When Lord Ryan is not so harsh on the slaves are also full of smiles on their faces. Moreover, because they belong to the Lord's wealth, no matter how many other people there are, they just bully them. Under this system, each class has its own reasons to find the source of happiness, so the happiness of the frozen land territory is not low. In addition, the towering silos are also part of the happiness. Slaves are a very important part of the noble territory. Moreover, although Ryan has never taken the initiative to pay attention to this world, he knows that the number of slaves must be not small, a lot. He is a baron and is not qualified to be special. The deslavery submitted by Atria is aimed at Ryan's previous plan. She believes that the status of slaves can be slowly pardoned at a rate of every year and every month, and the conditions can be clarified so that slaves can become civilians through slaves. Ryan agrees with this, but on top of this, he needs to add something. Ryan values both literature and martial arts. The frozen land leaders cannot be illiterate or weaklings. In the north, only those with wisdom and strength can provide more loyalty to his master Ryan. Simply put, even if a gifted child is born among slaves, he can be pardoned from slavery. Isn't this also a kind of contribution? That's it. Ryan printed the ring on the paper, and then watched the butler Beard come to the study. Master, the Clayton family sent a letter, and the caravan also returned from the province of Calais. Ryan took the letter, which had a fiery breath on it. After opening it, he saw that Earl Clayton praised his development, and then mentioned amber jade. Amber jade itself is a precious magical material. Klosterman needs it very much. This can accelerate its pace of becoming a legend. The family will buy it from you in the form of trade. In addition, most amber jade is just jade. A small part of amber jade, because of the name of amber, may seal some secrets from a long time ago. You have to pay attention. Some amber jade may reveal some treasures. Some people have found artifacts in amber, and some people have found the remains of gods in amber jade. People on the west coast are keen on gambling on stones. Ryan put down the letter, and the letter burned without wind. He roughly understood the role of amber jade, and at the same time found a sales channel for amber jade. He could sell it all to the Clayton family, or he could select a part and sell it to the west coast. However, the west coast is too far away, so Ryan decided not to consider it for the time being. Amber jade needs to be found. The alien world with only 10 years of time cannot support a trade route to the west coast. I don't know if it will be useful to Master McKen. Master Luna needs a batch of amber to improve her magic practice, and there is also a magic tower. She seems to want to choose a piece of amber as the top of the magic tower. I hope the scale of the gold mine will not disappoint you. Ryan soon received a second type of letter. It was from some nobles in the North Wind province. The letter said one thing, that is, their soldiers suffered heavy losses in the alien world, and they wanted to ask Ryan to command the army again, hunt the beasts of the alien world, and clean up some of them to relieve their pressure. Ryan replied one by one, expressing his refusal, and vaguely mentioned that he had encountered some troubles. The priest of the church died in his territory, and he was now in a mess. These nobles have not been pushed to the limit. Ryan agreed to it and would not get much benefit afterwards, so he naturally had to wait. Soon, the third letter also arrived, from a missionary of the church. He concealed his identity and came to the frozen land territory and handed the letter to a soldier. Respected Baron Ryan, welcome to become a believer of our Lord. The light of the dawn will not end in the darkness, But please forgive us for not being able to crown you. Please do not reveal your identity as a believer for the time being. The glory of our Lord will surely illuminate the cold of the north." Ryan had a strange expression. The church really had a way to detect the use of the dawn doctrine. However, did they treat him as a missionary? It's a bit troublesome. Ryan's eyes revealed murderous intent. He took out a blank piece of letter paper and wrote with a quill pen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Preaching, Assassination from Master Ryan. Respected Marcus of the North Wind, as you expected, believers of the Holy See have once again come to my territory. This time they are no longer openly, but sneaking in secretly. Perhaps, they are still looking for the truth. Beneath the greatness of the God of Light, there are shadows that even the sun cannot reach, and it seems that other nobles have discovered their identities. They asked me what the relationship between the Empire and the Holy See is. Perhaps this will affect the nobles' attitude towards the missionaries of the Holy See. The nobles are speculating about the true significance of the Marquis's arrival in the North Wind province. Is he spreading the faith for the God of Light in order to resist the majesty of the Dawn Church? If so, why would people from the Holy See appear in the North Wind province? If not, then why did people from the Holy See come here? I can't tell them that a priest of the Holy See died in my territory, so they are already doubting my loyalty to the Empire and the Great Columbus. Perhaps soon, the missionaries of the Holy See will contact other nobles. Ryan folded up the letter paper and did not brand it with a badge. He couldn't leave any evidence. Giving the letter to Beard, Lane wrote a second letter. Mr. Viscount, it's not that I don't want to enter the other world, but I'm still frightened by the experience not long ago. Even my 100 knights in attendance couldn't kill that powerful monster. Moreover, the natives said that the gods may have awakened. The mountain that was bitten off is the best evidence. We can't even mine the magic crystal veins. Forgive me for not being able to command the army personally. Perhaps you can think of other ways, but I sincerely suggest that you should pay attention to the North Wind province instead of the other world. Perhaps you don't know that people from the Holy See have appeared in the province, and I heard that a missionary, a future bishop of the Holy See, died here. They are looking for the truth, but perhaps the obvious answer is the distinguished lord who lives on Thunder Cloud Mountain. After the Marquis of North Wind came to the province, he did nothing. Perhaps, we just saw that he did nothing. To be honest, the missionary's body was found in my frozen land territory. I suspect it was because I stood up on Thunder Cloud Mountain and took back the land that belonged to us. It is said that the Marquis has a bad temper, and you know this, Ryan wrote casually. The handwriting he wrote was 8/10 true and 2/10 false, which looked very real, and even if it was leaked, it would not be his fault. For example, what was said in this letter? Ryan said that the Marquis Bifeng did nothing. In fact, in the eyes of the Marquis Bifeng, Ryan knew what he was doing and even provided advice and help for it. This little doubt can make the Marquis think that this letter was not written by Ryan himself. If questioned at that time, Ryan would never admit it, and coupled with various transactions, this letter would naturally not be true. Finally, Ryan wrote another letter to the two earls. The two letters were very different. They were probably about greeting the earl for eating and drinking well recently, and then vaguely mentioned that a missionary of the Holy See died in the frozen land. The cause of death was a pierced heart. A small wound was fatal enough. He asked Earl Winter if he took action because he could not take the tax revenue of Bifang City. He also asked Earl Solon if it was possible that it was Earl Winter's trick. He did not intend to get any response to these letters. The first letter was to ask Marcus Bifang to take better care of the missionary. It would be better to kill them. The second letter was purely to muddy the waters. In fact, he did not need the truth in the letters to the two earls. Anyway, the murderer was between the two earls. All he needed to do was to make the other earl look at the real murderer with suspicion. Because he actually wrote a letter and told the two earls about his troubles. Then to a large extent, the suspicion of being the murderer has been eliminated. The earl who is not the murderer will naturally be wary of the other earl who actually did it. At that time, no matter what the earl intends to do with the death of the missionary, there must be no trace left. Ryan is still very good at causing trouble for others. This is an opportunity. We need to take care of the Blue Lion tribe. If the Blue Lion tribe doesn't know what's good for us, We can add the Black Bear tribe. The two families are enemies, and if one expands, the other will not remain indifferent. It just so happens that the nobles suffered a lot during the riot in the mountains, and they will not pay attention to the tribal annexation between the natives in a short time. However, I can't go there in person, so I can only let the natives come out to receive the blessing. It can also prepare for accepting these natives in the future. The natives who come to the frozen land will naturally miss this place. Not bad, Master Ryan laughed. He seemed to be in the center of the vortex, but he stood outside the vortex and looked at the entire North Wind province. Archbishop, do you really think it can't be the Marquis of the North Wind? Behind Adriana, a missionary had sunken eyes. He hadn't slept for several days, condemning his heart, and he couldn't find the murderer who killed Father Buffett. This was a provocation to the Holy See, but none of the nobles of the Empire were willing to cooperate with him, except for the Baron Ryan, who was constantly popular. The Archbishop with big red wavy hair was silent. They did encounter many obstacles. In the Empire, even ordinary people dared not approach the church staff. Archbishop, I plan to use myself as bait, the missionary with tired eyes said firmly. I will go to preach. If the Marquis Bifang can't help it, I may die. At that time, I will definitely leave evidence, for the glory of my Lord. For the glory of the Dawn. The missionary's eyes were fanatical and he left the team directly. A few days later, the news that the missionary of the church preached in Tishan County spread throughout the Bifang province, and all the nobles were terrified. Especially Viscount Walter of Tishan County. He was a viscount and a county governor. But at this moment he had no way out. The missionary was beaten and scolded, but he did not resist no matter what, but firmly spread the doctrine of the church and fanatically called for the glory of the Dawn. The nobles did not dare to kill him at all, because he was holding a cross, and he was a candidate for the priest of the church. The more conflicts there are between the empire and the church, the more the nobles must be vigilant and not make mistakes. No one knows whether this missionary is a member of the church who deliberately came to die, and then the church began to suppress the empire morally. Because the war between the Southern Empire and the church was caused by the death of a cardinal at the viewing ceremony in the imperial capital. The cardinal committed suicide in the imperial capital. The church used this as an excuse to stand on the side of justice in the war. Any war needs a reason, even if it is high-sounding, even if it is not really necessary, but that reason must be just. We must let others know that we are fighting a just war. This is morale. The empire has already tasted such bitterness, and the nobles certainly dare not let the unjust conflict between the church and the empire break out again at this critical time. This is what it means to openly kill a future priest of the church. The other party's status is no less than that of a baron. Even Ryan, who was far away in the frozen land, guessed that when the missionary named Zico went to Tishan County alone, the archbishop had already granted him the status of a priest, and the church far away in the south might have urgently registered and recognized this status. Preaching openly? The church has taken advantage of the Marquis Bifang and dared not act at this sensitive time. Ryan's eyes were subtle, and then he called the Catman assassin who had just returned less than an hour ago. You, go and kill this missionary. Ryan looked in the direction of Liayan County. This Marquis Bifang, is he really that timid? For nobles, it's okay not to dare to kill openly. It's normal to be afraid of being involved in the vortex of the war between the empire and the church. But what is your identity and responsibility, Marquis Bifang? You don't even dare to kill people from the church. You have lost the face of the God of Light. Chapter 258, The Unglamorous Assassination. Tishan County. In the plain among the mountains, in Viscount Walter's castle, the Viscount hadn't eaten properly for several days. Why did that damn missionary appear in my territory? Why did he dare to spread the Dawn doctrine in Tishan County? Baron Freeman, I heard that you had exchanges with that missionary. Why didn't you kill him? Viscount Walter exploded his anger at Baron Freeman, who had just arrived today. They were all nobles, but at this moment, they actually looked like they were tearing each other's faces apart. Viscount Walter, please don't spit blood. I just want him to leave my territory. I am a noble of the empire, and I will not allow any personnel from the church to appear on my land. Then you let him come to my territory. I just told him that no one in my territory would believe in the church, and he left. How do I know where he will go? Okay, now we still have to think of a way to deal with this missionary. A baron next to him stood up and said to be a good guy. Baron Ryan wrote that the missionaries from the Holy See have been here for a long time, and a priest has died on imperial soil. Obviously, they are not targeting us, But the Marcus, the war between the Empire and the Holy See has spread to our territory. If it cannot be resolved, Earl Weiss's fate will not be much better than ours. Then what should we do? How about killing him? Viscount Walter suggested, his eyes full of murderous intent. He had a few connections in the south and knew that the conflict between the Empire and the Holy See was unimaginable. They could see the open war, but in secret, more than one legend had died. We can't kill him, we are just small nobles. We can't let the church focus on us. If we had known him earlier, we would have killed him on his way here, and there wouldn't be so many problems, but now we can't afford to be caught in the center of the vortex of the war between the church and the Empire. We must move. How about letting him go to Lingdu County? No, the proposal was interrupted by the nobles just as it began. Viscount Walter remembered at this time that there were already a lot of economic exchanges between Tishan County and Frozen Territory and Lingdu County, and some nobles had even started to marry. These things were not high profile, but they put the nobles of the two counties in a honeymoon period. During this time, he had already felt that what he said in Tishan County was no longer so effective. Why not rush to the territory of that Viscount? The orcs went south, and Hanshin City County has not recovered yet. Viscount Landa is no longer as strong as he used to be. The nobles pity his experience, but after so much time, the weakness of this Viscount has made them dare to show their fangs. That's fine. Since the Viscount is already so pitiful, let's make him even more pitiful. While the nobles were discussing what to do, on the edge of Viscount Walter's territory, on the mountain road continent, there won't be too many people passing by here, but every person passing by will be stopped by the missionary priest Zico. The glory of the dawn will not end in any dark realm. The awakening of my Lord is destined to dispel the coldness of the north, fill the earth with warmth, and let countless ears of wheat grow in the farmland. There are already 2 or 3 believers stopping by the missionary. He did nothing and met only 20 or 30 people. But 1/10 of them became believers of the Holy See. This is the horror of the Holy See. And today, Priest Zico will release divine magic. He will use healing magic to heal the injuries in these people's bodies and use clarity magic to dispel their fatigue. Although he is not as good as the priests of the Holy See, he still makes the believers look extremely pious. The glory of our Lord shines every morning, and the glory of the morning light belongs to every believer of his. After the missionary finished speaking, he looked at the civilians next to him who were attracted by the miracle. They were going to the mountains to collect firewood today, but they couldn't help but stay. They didn't want to come either, because the noble master had said that no one was allowed to approach the missionaries outside. But when he said this, the noble master did not cancel the firewood they had to hand in. So, they had to come out to work. "Father, my father is injured. Can he get better?" A young man came over here bravely and asked softly. Priest Zico's eyes were gentle, full of kindness and friendliness. The light of the morning sun shines on every one of his people. All his believers can enjoy the healing of the morning sun. Every morning, you will dispel the fatigue and hunger born in the night, but you are not yet believers of my Lord. But my Lord is merciful. He asked me to come here to heal the broken bones of your father. His eyes followed the dark-skinned young man and saw the pale middle-aged man whose arm was fixed by a wooden board and a vine was dragged around his neck. Very good method. The middle-aged man walked over respectfully and said, "This is the method given to us by Master Ryan who came from Lingdu County last year. Because of this method, the wounded soldiers of the army at that time can now go to work in the fields. He is a great nobleman," the middle-aged man said with longing and respect. Hearing the great words, Zyke couldn't help frowning, but when he heard Ryan's name, he smiled with relief again. Only the devout believers of our Lord can possess such kindness and wisdom. Priest Zico made a move, and the healing glow fell. He was not a priest who specialized in healing, and it would take a lot of energy to heal the broken hand bones. Half an hour later, after the middle-aged man was trembling with itching, Chief Zico breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay, don't shake this arm in the next few days. Your hand has been healed by the dawn of our Lord. Praise our Lord, praise." Several farmers wanted to say something excitedly, but the next moment, their pupils shrank like needles and wheat spikes. Little words could not be said after all. At the moment when Priest Zico released the healing spell and the divine power in his body was rotating, the rapier that came out of the shadows had pierced his head. There was no sound, no killing intent, and no emotional fluctuations. The Catman assassin that came out of the shadows was like a stone without a heartbeat, using all his strength and extraordinary power to penetrate the rapier. He found an opportunity, and stabbed out a sword without causing any change in light and shadow, then drew back the rapier and fled without looking back. What is an assassin? They only have one chance, that is, an assassin. If they succeed, they live. If they fail, they die. Every move is at perfect timing, and every assassination is flawless. So the Catman assassin does not need to look back to observe the target, he does not need to see anything, he just needs to run desperately. Because if he succeeds, no one else here can catch up with him. If he fails, he will die under the magic of the Vatican missionary. He will use his own life and death to judge whether this mission is successful. However, in the end, Priest Zico did not know who killed him from behind. The only thing he reacted to on his deathbed was, "This is the power that killed Father Buffett." Chapter 259 The Pioneer of Light arrives. When the nobles arrived with the army, there was no one beside the body. The nobles looked at the body on the ground with extremely ugly faces. They should have been angry, but now the atmosphere was reduced to the extreme. "What should we do now?" Baron Freeman said. He swallowed his saliva, and didn't dare to speak loudly at this moment. They couldn't be sure of the cause of the missionary's death, because the cat assassin only appeared in a few places, Lingdu County, and the battlefield of Hongaiin at that time. There were no nobles from Tishan County participating in these places. The reason for their silence was that the missionary was dead, and it was certain that he was not killed by suicide. Whoever killed him could not be a member of the church, so the answer could only be the nobles of the empire. The nobles of Bifang province. Are they from Tishan County? No, who could it be? No matter who it is, it will be a big trouble. Throw his body away, Viscount Walter gritted his teeth and said. He didn't want the body to be on the edge of his territory. The soldiers took action, but after moving the body, a line of carved words appeared on the ground. There were traces of divine magic on it, which could not be copied by outsiders. The blasphemer of the Lord, the heretic who calls himself the Light, damn it, Viscount Walter asked the soldiers to leave the body behind, and then return to his castle without looking back. One day later, the Archbishop of the Holy See, Adriana, led the remaining missionaries to break into Thundercloud County again. This time it was no longer a visit. They began to question the Marquis of Northwind as envoys of the Holy See. At the same time, in the Earl's mansion in the mountains of Northwind County, which was easy to defend and difficult to attack, Earl Winter looked at the letter in his hand and the news from afar. Count Sauron? How could that old guy Muir do such a thing? Or was it a play directed and performed by the little guy Baron Ryan? Not likely, so the most likely one is the old guy Muir. Why? Only the three of them knew about the existence of the cat assassins. After all, this method did not fit the image of the nobles, and assassins. What's the use if others know you have assassins? So at the beginning they all said that the cat assassins were all killed. For this reason, a lot of cat corpses were brought out as evidence. Count Winter did not doubt Ryan very much, because the corpse was found in the frozen land, which was not a good thing for the frozen land. Could the old guy Muir be targeting me? No matter who did it, on the surface it triggered the struggle between the Marquis of the Northwind and the Church, but under this situation, the political struggle between the nobles is not a monolithic one. Since the Marquis of the Northwind did not do these things, he would certainly be angry at the murderer who did these things. No matter how you look at him, Count Winter is the one with the greatest motive for murder. After all, he lost so many gold coins every year. Bang! Thinking of this, Earl Winter couldn't help but slam the table heavily. No, I have to fight back, Longshan County. Earl Sauron naturally received Ryan's letter, and because of the distance, it was earlier than Earl Winter. This little guy Ryan is really smart, it seems to be asking, but in fact, it is telling me that he may tell the truth at any time. Anyway, the target is on us two earls and nobles. The storm is already brewing, but he can always find a way to divert the center of the storm. It depends on whether we can gain the most in this political struggle. Earl Sauron put down the letter. He knew that this was a game. The nobles in the game were the three of them, plus the Marquis of the Northwind who had not yet responded to participate. There are only a few people from the Holy See, and I don't know what they are thinking. Earl Sauron was looking forward to the meetings of the Holy See, but by then Ryan was thinking about the Empire. Faith needs believers. Marcus Bifang is not really planning to preach in Bifang province and then cultivate believers, right? This is too slow. He knew very well that what the Empire needed was not a brand new church. The greatest role of the God of Light was still on the royal power. The combination of divine power and royal power, the so-called faith in the God of Light, was not the most important. What was important was to make people understand that the Columbus royal family was the spokesperson for the gods. They had secular rights and the right to believe. All light was for the royal power of the empire. Therefore, they did not need real believers and faith at all. It was enough for them to just do it on the surface. This was why the hatred of the church was so great. If the faith was not pure, it was absolutely not faith. But they flaunted it in the name of the Lord. The archbishop of the church broke into Thundercloud Mountain. On the peak of that mountain, an astonishing movement finally broke out. Some people saw the divine magic covering the sky within 100 meters, turning into a snow-white sharp blade and falling, but it was stopped by a powerful knight on Thundercloud Mountain. The archbishop withdrew from the marquisate, and the Marquis of Bifang finally did the second thing after coming to Bifang province. To be precise, it must wait until this time. Because half a day ago, a large team from the south crossed the Wing Canyon and came to Bifang province. They came from various provinces and noble families in the south. The team was huge, and it exceeded 10,000 people one after another, but the key was only 100 people. Their identities were extraordinary. They were the heirs of nobles, the second sons or the beloved children, and some were the descendants of some powerful and extraordinary people. They came to Bifang province together. Without exception, they entered Lian County and took out their pioneering orders under the witness of the Marquis of Bifang. The Lord system finally took shape. These sons of nobles had no right to inherit, but their fathers had planned a better future for them than before, becoming lords and becoming real nobles. Before the Lord system, they could only become pioneer knights at most. But after the Lord system, the status and voice of the fifth-class nobles behind them increased, and they could become lords. But as a compromise, these people were also devout believers of the God of Light, and they were pioneers of light. Although every pioneer noble is what the empire calls a pioneer of light, it is obvious that other nobles are different from these true believers of light. They must fulfill their duties as believers, whether they are sincere or superficial. When these people arrived, all the remaining unowned lands in the Northwind province had owners. Of course, the number was too large, so more than half of the pioneer lords really had to become true pioneers in the wasteland. At the same time, the first thing that the Marquis of Northwind did also had results, that is, he spread the faith of the God of Light, which also had an effect at the bottom. He gave those people to 23 lords with great noble backgrounds. The source of these people, of course, was the people of the former Earl of Weiss in Lian County, and the population that other nobles in Lian County had to pinch their noses to take out. Light is the creator of all things, and we are believers and devout servants of light. The great Columbus royal family is the incarnation of the God of Light in the world and the absolute ruler of the empire. These lords, telling the faith of light, also swore loyalty to the great light walker, Emperor Columbus. The combination of royal power and divine power also began to unfold at this time. On the third day after the news spread, Ryan of the Frozen Territory received two pieces of news. The first was that the familiar Twilight Territory, the barony without a lord in Thundercloud County, was given to a lord from the Grand Duke Myers family, Valent Myers. The second was that he died on the way to take office. With him died a member of the Earl of Winter's family, the Earl's nephew, the second son of Lord Hora, the Sky Knight, who originally represented the attitude of Earl Winter. Chapter 260, Serving the Dawn, Walking in the Dark. Valenti Myers, the eldest son of Grand Duke Myers' second son, celebrated his 24th birthday in the dukedom at the beginning of this year. As a father of two children, his nightmare breathing technique has reached the strength of a golden knight. 3 years ago, at the banquet of Valenti's wedding, Grand Duke Myers personally attended and praised him, saying that he was the pride of the Myers family. This is the sixth member of the Myers family to be praised in 30 years. On the Rhinoceros Horn Mountain, Ryan listened to the report of Alfie Clayton, who had black hair and red eyes. The latter came from the Clayton family. Of course, he has now sworn allegiance to Baron Ryan and is responsible for information statistics beside Ryan. It must be said that those who have received internal education from the nobility are easy to use. Whether in terms of attitude, loyalty or workability, they are top-notch. Alfie, who do you think killed such a noble who is about to become a Sky Knight? Don't be too restrained. It doesn't matter if you say our Emperor, Ryan said with a smile. But of course it can't be His Majesty the Emperor. The most likely possibility is still the Church, but aren't they in the Marquisate? That legendary knight can't even keep an eye on them, or are there other Church members who I don't even know about who have come to the Northwind province? Bang! The heavy table flew out in front of the sacred glow. Adriana stared angrily at the figure in the dark cloak standing outside the door, not daring to take a step forward. "Your Excellency the Archbishop, may the Lord forgive me for hiding it from you." The Archbishop's red-haired wavy hair became even more wavy in anger. "Without my will, what rights do you have to kill the descendants of the Myers family, Black Swan? You group of demons from hell, do you know how much trouble it will cause to kill a noble? I want to force the Marquess of the North Wind, the blasphemer of my lord, to confess his guilt, and you have destroyed everything." Outside the door, the eyes under the cloak raised their heads, looked at the cross of light on the door frame, and then bowed their heads in piety and awe. "Your Excellency, Archbishop, we are here to kill these blasphemers under the order of the Pope." "Your Excellency, the Pope knew that they would arrive in the North Wind province. We followed them all the way just to use their blood in their territory to water the glory of our Lord. The heir of the Myers family blasphemed our Lord, so he must die." Adriana snorted coldly. She was not afraid of the Pope mentioned by the other party. "Tell me, why is the Pope so angry? On the battlefield in the south, the Imperial army's attack is very fierce. My Lord's believers have already entered the kingdom of heaven to serve my Lord in advance, including the 3 archbishops. Your Excellency Miranda, who is known as the favored one of the sky, died at the hands of the Light of Myers, the warrior. Miranda is dead." Adriana was a little shocked. She vaguely remembered that he was an arrogant guy. His faith was not actually pious, but the favor of the Lord fell on him. There were many rumors in the church that he was a rebellious child of the Lord. This is a description that proves how much Chanxi dotes on Miranda. No wonder the Pope is so angry. Miranda is a candidate for the cardinal and a strong contender for the successor to the Pope. His father is also a retired cardinal. War, has it reached this point? Archbishop Adriana could not hide her shock. She knew some inside information. The purpose of the church to start the war was to deepen the faith cohesion of various kingdoms and noble lords. Over the years, the glory of the Lord has been restored more and more slowly, because the empire, the blasphemer, has caused the kingdoms and nobles in the southern land to have thoughts. The church needs a war to let these kingdoms and noble lords understand that they are not qualified to imitate the empire, and the empire that blasphemes the faith will also be destroyed in front of them. The final goal is not now. The war currently started by the church is only for the first goal. The beginning of the war will make those kingdoms no longer think about trying to expel the glory of the dawn. The empire sent 10 extraordinary legions from the north into the Thousand Lakes province. The most important one was the expeditionary force from the deep sea of the west coast, the plunderer legion that brought countless wealth to the west coast. Adriana was silent. There was only one extraordinary legion named after a person in the world. But even the archbishop who believed in the dawn stopped talking, because that person was the first blasphemer in the world. After he blasphemed, he was still alive. It was after this person that the nobles woke up and began to imitate him to plunder the divinity lost by the gods in the war. The nobles became powerful from then on. We came to the northern border of the empire, this time to kill those pioneers who blasphemed our Lord. We will receive orders directly from the Pope, so the archbishop cannot order us. The glory of our Lord will surely illuminate this dark land. Adriana couldn't help but say, the people in this land will eventually become believers of our Lord. You can only kill those pioneers of light. This time, the figure that had gradually disappeared did not answer, but called out devoutly, "We walk in the darkness, we serve the dawn. Before the light of the dawn dispels the darkness, we supply the glory of the Lord in the darkness." His words have made it very clear that this action is not controlled by the archbishop in front of him. "Wait, there's someone you can't move," Adriana shouted. She didn't want Baron Ryan to die at the hands of these people. The elders once doubted whether Archbishop Adriana's faith was still devout. After coming to the north, she did not send back any good news for a long time. The empire is the enemy of the church. The glory of our Lord cannot be blasphemed. When receiving the Pope's order, the elders asked us to test whether the Archbishop's faith had changed. She mentioned the Baron. "Then go find the Baron. See if he is a white swan or a black swan." In the shadows of the dense forest, there came a whisper like a devil. "We serve the dawn, we walk in the darkness, we wander in the lakes of eternal night and dawn. One day, we will become white swans entering heaven in the dawn. Praise my Lord." In the dense forest, the light seemed to be much dimmer. A hare raised its head in a trance, and the next moment its head rolled to the side in the swaying shade of the tree. Chapter 261 Assassin's Duel in the Dark. In the wilderness world of Svadilferi, Ryan rode Winter and galloped freely on the wilderness. The wind whistled in his ears, and the sea of clouds in the sky was far away, as if thousands of days had passed in this short period of time. The earth seemed to have no end, and the snow-capped mountains in the distance were submerged by the wind and snow. In the lonely, Wallen's blacksmith shop, Brock waved the artifact hammer, trying to hammer out a powerful weapon that had never been seen before. The heat of the blood dispelled the coldness of the world, and Ryan came to the warhorse breathing base of the Great Wizard Maken. "Your Excellency the Great Wizard Maken, your wisdom amazes the gods." The Great Wizard Maken was lying on a chair in his rare leisure time. In his hand, there was a transparent vessel, which swayed the precious fruit wine that only existed in this world. Haha, the reason why the gods are afraid of the rise of magic is because the birth of magic has threatened the gods. Your Excellency Baron Ryan, your talent for earning gold punk is the best I have ever seen. Ryan also laughed. Just in the morning, the team from the Andorra Kingdom came back, bringing the goodwill of the Grand Duke and many nobles. At the same time, the team that went to the southern Calais province to trade with the Clayton family and his father-in-law's family came back, bringing more trade orders. Of course, there was also a letter from his fiancée, Avril Melendez. There was not much communication in the letter, but Viscount Melendez mentioned in the letter that Avril's progress in the Magic Academy would soon be completed, and then she would be able to go to the frozen land to get married. Seeing this, Ryan couldn't help but be amazed. He had never had such an experience in his 2 lives, so he was a little nervous, so he came to Svidiferi and galloped in another place. It was really because I had just received a letter from afar, and I was embarrassed to gallop on the wild horse in the castle tonight. Hearing the news brought by Ryan, the Great Wizard Maken couldn't help but be slightly stunned. The heir of the Myers family, a feudal lord, was assassinated. That old friend must be very angry. I wonder if the Nightmare Knights will participate in the battlefield in the south. There was worry in the eyes of Master Maken, which made Ryan couldn't help but wonder. You seem to not want Grand Duke Myers to join the war, not just him. If any of the 4 Grand Dukes of the Empire allows his extraordinary army to enter the Thousand Lakes province, it will be a huge disaster. The foundation of the 4 Grand Dukes is not much inferior to that of the royal family. If they join forces, the royal family will have to avoid their edge. Did you know? 100 years ago, when the pan-dimensional war of the gods had just ended, the Columbus royal family and the 4 Grand Dukes families were collectively called the original empire. At that time, the royal family and the 4 Grand Dukes could represent the entire empire. Of course, I don't want your father, Ryan, to join the war either. Under the leadership of your father, the strength of the Earl of Clayton's family has also become terrifying. In the Magic Academy, many magicians have helped the Clayton family do some things. Later we communicated, and your father occupied at least 7 different world planes. Each one is no less powerful than the mountain forest world discovered in Thundercloud County. Of course, you, suddenly thinking of Ryan, Master Maken shook his head and stopped talking. It seems that Ryan, as a son, seems to be more favored by the gods than Earl Clayton. You just need to understand that if necessary, the great nobles of the empire can unite and have the power to fight against the gods. What does if necessary mean? Ryan didn't understand. He had a similar understanding of the politics, social structure and economy of this world, but he seemed to be in the initial stage of the extraordinary side. This is not surprising. After all, he has traveled through time and his experience and knowledge are limited to this. As for the extraordinary, history books don't teach it. Master Maken didn't understand it either. This was said by his teacher, the predecessor who had researched the Highland war horse. On the other side, the Black Swans of the Holy See have entered the Frozen Land territory and even broke into the castle on the Rhino Horn Mountain. This castle, which is not covered with any magic secret patterns, can't stop them from walking invisibly. But they didn't find Ryan. He's not here, the shadows in the dark whispered, and some assassins were silent and puzzled that there were nobles who are not in their castles at night. Where will he be? The Archbishop said he is a believer of my lord. Maybe he is praying in the dark, waiting for the moment when the dawn comes, or, wait until daytime. Okay, in the darkness, the shadows were silent. The Black Swan assassin hidden in the shadows stood like a gargoyle. However, at a certain moment, there were no towering trees on Rhino Horn Mountain, only some ornamental trees planted in the castle. In the dark night, a leaf that should not have fallen tonight fell silently. It glided in a zigzag shape. When it glided for the 5th time and revealed the other side of the leaf, the veins of the leaf lit up in the darkness. The extreme speed split the leaf into two. Without the advantage of resisting gravity, it was no longer light. The two halves of the leaf quickly fell to the ground, but what was faster than its falling speed was the blood spilling in the darkness. The shadows were shaking. The walls of the castle were originally pitch black, but in these short tens of seconds, there would always be an inexplicable light, reflecting the moments in the castle in the dark. In one moment, there were flashes of outlines, and in another moment, slender weapons slashed across the wall. It was only at this time that he seemed to be able to react. The fleeting light in the darkness was the huge burst of hot energy when the metal collided. Boom! The stone wall collapsed, and Brand rushed in with a knight's sword. As Ryan once said, there is no place for assassins on the battlefield. The moment he came here, this place became his battlefield. There was a stag neighing behind him, and it was difficult for him to find the enemy in the shadow. Fortunately, Appia spoke at this time. Left, boom. The greatsword fell, and the knight's fighting spirit tore through the darkness. Huh? When Ryan returned to Rhinohorn Mountain from the Swati Fairy Plains the next day, he saw that his castle was missing a large piece. The soldier pulled off the cloak, and what was exposed in front of Ryan was a thin corpse with pale skin. A total of 7. 6 of them escaped. I couldn't catch up with them. They are stronger than me. If they were not inferior to us in assassin skills and were ambushed by us, we would not survive a head-on collision. There were 3 intersecting bloodstains on Appia's chest, and on the other side, 5 cat assassins had died last night. They were clearly ambushed, and they had the advantage of terrain and people, but they still won a tragic victory. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a thing in the Frozen Land territory just after returning from the Andorra Kingdom. Whose assassins could they be? Ryan looked at these pale corpses with skin that looked like they were blistered, and his eyes were thoughtful. It's impossible for them to be from the North Wind province, so they must be outsiders. Ryan thought of the dead Valenti Myers, and it seemed that there would not be too many answers. I didn't expect the church to be so insidious, Ryan laughed. He was very happy. Yes. If the church was full of believers who were as devout and fanatical as Adriana and those missionaries, but abandoned everything else for their beliefs, Ryan would really be afraid of the church. Fanatics are unreasonable. But now, he is not so afraid. These assassins who are most likely from the church come to him for no reason, so the reason of faith is very small. Which of those pioneers of light is not more worthy of assassination than Baron Ryan? On the contrary, the proportion of political reasons is very large. The Archbishop also has opponents in the church. Appia? You said they are stronger than you. Yes, Master. Appia lowered his head and said that they, the cat assassins, were indeed born on this extraordinary path. But 1% of talent and 99% of resources will also form a huge gap. Then work hard and become stronger than them. I don't want you to lose in the next duel, and I don't want my life to continue to be threatened by these things. Ryan pointed to the ground. The chests of several corpses had sunken and their hearts were turning into thick water. Obviously, they were not normal people. Follow your wishes. Appia knelt on the ground. Of course, he understood that this was Ryan's statement that he intended to blast them on a large scale. Chapter 262 Assassination and Anger. Ryan, who was assassinated, certainly would not be in a good mood, but within a few days, he could not care about his mood. In the North Wind province, a total of 15 lords were assassinated, and none of them survived. The remaining pioneers of light are trembling, and most of them don't even dare to stay in their own territory. This is the news Ryan received. In fact, it is not just the lords who have just come to the North Wind province, but the local nobles are also a little frightened. They are all worried and huddled together, so Ryan can know about this matter the fastest. Is the church tearing its face off? Ryan was a little surprised. He thought that killing a descendant of the Myers family would be fine, but it turned out to be aimed at everyone. The war of faith is more cruel than imagined. Thundercloud County. The Marquess of North Wind, who is already in a bad mood, became even more angry. The death of a noble descendant of the Myers family was a very serious matter. As a result, before the news was passed back to the imperial capital, more than a dozen pioneering nobles died. They were all pioneers who believed in the God of Light. It goes without saying who would deal with them. Before the solution, the death of Valenti Myers was enough to make him anxious. Now that so many nobles have died, it can no longer be concealed. The entire empire will be shaken. He can almost imagine that the anger of the nobles in the south will eventually spread to the head of the church, but the first one must be Marcus B. Fang who touches the anger of the nobles. You know, these lords of the light pioneers have backgrounds behind them, and their fathers are powerful nobles. Mulan. Go and kill all those missionaries. They dare to massacre the nobles of the empire. The church is starting a war. Marcus B. Fang roared, and the teams entering and leaving the other world on Thunder Cloud Mountain became much quieter. The archbishop has a token of the church. If I take action, the great blessing will fall, and the power brought by the divine descent will not be inferior to the legend. Are you really sure? Knight Mulan said on the side. He is just a knight. This extraordinary path accepts everyone, but in terms of means, it is not as rich as other extraordinary paths. So if he took action, he would definitely be discovered. It was impossible to kill the archbishop before the arrival of the divine descent. What can we do now? Just watch them kill the nobles of the empire? The believers of the God of Light, many lords have gathered on Thunder Cloud Mountain. They all ran here because they were afraid of being assassinated. The Marquis of Bifang had to take care of so many giant babies. For a while, the pressure was huge. Knight Mulan sighed a little. He didn't know whether it was the right choice for the royal family to arrange him to become the Marquis of Bifang. At this moment, he could only give a little suggestion. The purpose of your coming here is to spread the faith of light. Those pioneering lords, since they have come to Bifang province, their identities are not only believers of light. Before this identity, they were nobles of the empire and were nobles of the fiefdom who had been canonized in Bifang province. The people of the Holy See killed not only believers of light, but also nobles of Bifang province. This is a provocation to the empire and a declaration of war against all nobles in Bifang province. The eyes of the Marquis of Bifang widened, and he suddenly laughed. That's right. The church killed the nobles of Bifang province. This is a shame for all the nobles, a shame. Write to me now and tell all the nobles of Bifang province to come to Lian County. This is war. The number of followers that Marcus Bifang brought to Bifang province was not large, but a large proportion of them were extraordinary people. In the evening of the same day, Baron Ryan of the farthest frozen land received a letter from a blue bird, asking him to go to Lian County. The church assassinated the nobles of Bifang province of the empire. This is a provocation and declaration of war against all the nobles. This is a war with the church. From his words, one can seem to feel the anger of the Marcus Bifang. The reaction is quite fast. Do you finally know that you should rely on the advantages of the local nobles to deal with the church? Ryan put down the letter and called Bran to come. Early the next morning, Ryan set off with the corpses of the Black Swan assassins that had turned into mummies. Thundercloud County, the wind and clouds gathered. Ryan, who had not arrived early, first saw Viscount Walter, who was frowning among the nobles. My Lord Viscount, what's wrong with you? Ryan asked. Viscount Walter looked at Ryan, his eyes brightened a lot. Baron Ryan, you don't know that Tishan County is very close, and I came very early, but as soon as I arrived, the governor began to praise me, saying that I killed the missionary of the Holy See and won a great victory for the empire. What was supposed to come still came, which was also the reason why Viscount Walter was frowning. The death of the missionary was causing him great trouble. Ryan heard what the noble Viscount meant. What the Viscount means is, Marcus Bifang, that the governor wants you to tell us that this war is between the nobles and the church. Viscount Walter nodded and said, he asked me to cooperate with him and persuade everyone to find all the church personnel in the Bifang province and burn them to death. I remember that there are several missionaries in Thundercloud County all the time, right? Ryan asked curiously, but obviously, the Marcus Bifang ignored the archbishop and his party. He had no reason to kill these missionaries. After all, the missionaries now have evidence in their hands and keep forcing the Marcus. It is the Marcus Bifang who stands on the unjust side. After waiting for another day, all the nobles in the Bifang province arrived at the Thundercloud Mountain. This time it was not for the other world plain, but the anger of the governor. When the Marcus Bifang saw that all the nobles, even the 1 or 2-year-old heirs, were held in their seats, he began to show his majesty and anger. Damn the church, they dared to kill the nobles of the great empire. This is a provocation to all the nobles of the empire. They are starting a war. You are all nobles of the Northwind province. How can you just watch the death of more than a dozen noble lords and remain indifferent? The Marquis of the Northwind looked at everyone indifferently, and the children were even scared and cried. Can I doubt that the nobles of the Northwind province have ignored the rules of the empire? Turn a blind eye to the challenge of the church. After this, the nobles certainly could not remain silent. However, Before any noble wanted to refute, Ryan stood up and said, "Governor, do you have evidence to prove that the murderer who killed Lord Valenti and other pioneering lords is from the church? If there is no evidence, I am afraid we will be very passive. If it was facing some other enemy, it would be fine. Without evidence, they would not dare to fight against the empire, but the church could not do that. Without a legitimate reason, it would be at a disadvantage in all aspects of politics." Chapter 263 returned to the original goal. Marcus B. Fang felt his brain was a little congested. He looked at Ryan with a gloomy look, ignoring whether the relationship between the two had eased before. He never thought that it would be Baron Ryan who stood up to refute him, and he was speaking for the Holy See. "Baron Ryan, what do you mean? Do you think it was not the Holy See who killed them, but other murderers?" A noble stood up and scolded. It was Viscount Hogg. "Viscount Hogg is joking. We all know that the murderer can only be the Holy See, but if there is no evidence to prove it, we will be very passive. We can say that the Holy See killed the Lord of Bifang province and declared war, but we can't produce evidence. What if the Holy See can produce evidence to prove that they didn't do it? How could they?" Marcus Bifang was halfway through his words, but suddenly fell silent. Because just before, after the cardinal died in the imperial capital, the Holy See also claimed that their cardinal could not have committed suicide, and even used divine magic to verify the truth. The answer they got was, of course, not good for the empire, and that was why the southern kingdom and the nobles looked at the empire in a strange way. "So, no murderer was found, right?" Ryan asked, but he had already gotten the answer. The knights around the lords who were killed could not even leave an assassin. It was even possible that they did not react. "By the way, I have another thing to say," Ryan said, and his expression became angry. "On the second day after Lord Valenti's death, assassins actually broke into my territory and tried to kill me, killed a baron of the empire," Ryan shouted loudly, and all the nobles looked up, a little surprised. "Baron Ryan was assassinated? Bring the bodies in," Ryan shouted outside, and soon, soldiers brought bodies into the hall, and in front of everyone, Ryan lifted his cloak. "These damn assassins tried to assassinate me in the dark. I still don't know where they came from," a noble frowned. "Baron Ryan, this corpse has probably been dead for several months. Are you sure they assassinated you a few days ago?" Of course, the eyes of the Marquis of Bifang brightened up, and he looked at Ryan with a lot of eyes. "This is the means of the church. They can make the dead body become like this in a short time. This is a divine art, but the empire knows the truth. This is the extraordinary inheritance that the fanatics of the church snatched from the vampires." "Vampires?" Ryan was a little confused. How could he be related to vampires again? In the past, the church had a bad relationship with people of other extraordinary ways except knights. They called magic evil witchcraft. Vampires, such extraordinary life forms, would be burned to death with holy light if they were discovered. Other extraordinary ways were also suppressed by the church and dared not walk in the sun at all. "I will write a letter to the giant stone castle, and Earl William will tell me who the murderer fights for." Earl William is a well-known name, not only because of this surname, but also because he is the Earl of the Silver Moon Highlands province and has a supernatural army under his command. An extraordinary army of vampires. Does the Earl have the power to make these corpses tell us the answer? Of course, Marcus Bifang didn't say much. Ryan guessed that this might involve the struggle between vampires and the church, and the fighting between them. As the saying goes, the one who knows you best may not be your friend, but more likely your enemy. He looked at Viscount Hogg, who seemed to have the blood of William. "Earl William will send someone, and we will get evidence soon." Marcus Bifang looked around and looked at these local nobles. "This war was started by the church, and we must accept it." After speaking, he looked at Viscount Walter. The governor of Tishan County was a little helpless, but when he looked at Ryan, he was grateful. Ryan's behavior just now was considered to have pulled him, a nobleman in the center of the storm, out a little. Standing up, Viscount Walter said righteously, "The church is provoking all the nobles of the empire. This war is a war between all of us and the church. In the name of faith, they are trying to replace our rights in our own territory. Do you know? That missionary wanted to build a church in my Viscount's territory. He actually wanted to be the priest of my territory. Let my people pray in his church every morning and evening." The initial confrontation between theocracy and royal power was based on strength, and the reason was because of power. When the priests of the church were gone, the power of the noble lords was suddenly huge, which also significantly improved the cohesion of the subsequent nobles to resist the church. They tasted the sweetness. The faith of the church will weaken the power in their hands. When Viscount Walter said this, all the nobles' eyes changed. They may not care whether there is a church in their territory, but they care that the church will be out of their control. This is the territorial kingship. The kingship is no longer absolute. Is it still the kingship? What does the governor want us to do? Count Winter finally spoke, and his words represented the attitude of many nobles. Marcus Bifang had a smile on his face. I need you to find all the church personnel in Bifang province and kill or expel them. As the governor of the province, Marcus Bifang still has great power. Of course, those who were killed were the assassins, and those who were expelled were Adriana's missionaries. We can't stay in Thundercloud County any longer, Archbishop Adriana said this after a silence. The missionaries next to him were also helpless. Their assassination will only make the Empire start to target us. Archbishop, what should we do now? The Archbishop looked up at the sun in the sky, then lowered his head and looked pious. Let's go. Father Buffett and Priest Seiko will become a regret in all our hearts, but they died to spread the glory of the Lord. They will definitely enter the eternal kingdom of heaven and serve beside our Lord. We should do what we should do. A group of people, no longer obsessed with the two missionaries who died in the North Wind province, left Liayan County and went to Longshan County. They began to walk in one territory after another and began to spread the faith of Dawn in the way of missionaries. This is what they should have done when they came here, but too many unexpected things interrupted their plans. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, finally obtained the target. Earl Solon was a little angry. He didn't expect that these missionaries would come to his territory to preach. Your Excellency the Archbishop, you are not welcome here. You should leave. Fetter Solon, the heir to the Earl's title, blocked the missionaries with soldiers. We are here on behalf of the Holy See. Adriana took out a cross emitting holy light from her chest. Interestingly, even though the two sides fought like this, the Empire did not publicly declare that the Holy See was the mortal enemy of the Empire. Therefore, when the Archbishop took out the token, Fetter could not stop the other party from entering the territory. You are not allowed to do anything, Fetter said with a gloomy look, and then follow these people in person. The missionaries did nothing. They walked in the Earl's territory, without taking out the doctrine of the Lord of Dawn, nor praying for the glory of the Lord and the glory of the Holy See. They walked and stopped, facing those curious eyes, and the missionaries who sensed something would walk towards some slaves or even civilians. Then, the healing spell or the clarity spell was cast to heal the opponent's injuries and dispel their fatigue. Then after it was over, they said a catchphrase, "May the dawn of the Lord favor you." This is what the missionaries of the Holy See would say after the release of the divine spell, so they were indeed not preaching, and Fetter could not find any handle on this. In this way, several missionaries walked around the Earl's territory for 2 or 3 days, and then left by themselves. They shuttled between the viscounts and barons, doing the same thing without any transgression. They did not preach openly, but everyone in the territory knew that the believers of the Holy See had arrived. Maybe it was difficult for them to contact them for the second time, but these people would get together when they had nothing to do and communicate. For civilians and slaves, their lives were boring, and they kept talking about those topics over and over again. Now there was an additional topic that could attract the curiosity of others, so they would naturally not keep it. The spread of topics such as divine healing, divine radiance and favor, etc., naturally left a mark on the Dawn Church in the hearts of these people. This is the Empire, so this alone is enough for the missionaries. They may not spread the faith here, but the people of the Empire must know the existence of the Church. As long as they know, the dark land of the Empire that cannot be illuminated by the morning light will breed countless seeds, waiting for a certain opportunity from the Church. At that time, the Lord's faith will surge. The missionaries kept walking, and when they walked through the entire Longshan County, they went to Lingdu County. If nothing unexpected happened, even the frozen land would welcome their arrival. Baron Ryan, who is already regarded as one of his own, certainly could not find any reason to refuse. However, in comparison, the spread of faith in the frozen land was undoubtedly more difficult. Because of the environment here, and Baron Ryan himself. In the eyes of the people of the frozen land, Baron Ryan, their lord, was a person favored by the gods. He could easily cross the gate of the other world and bring them from that desperate world to this world where they could survive. If this is not a miracle, what is it? Therefore, this group of people are very loyal to Ryan. Perhaps this will not affect their belief in the Lord of Dawn at the same time, but with a lord who is already favored by the gods, why should they go far away? In this world with gods, the existence of divine power is impossible to disappear, but Ryan can simply take it all into his hands through various means. To control divine power with royal power, both must be possessed first. This is what the Empire is doing, the God of Light, a great and eternal God. So, under the oppression of these missionaries, the Cathedral of Light outside the southern imperial capital finally agreed to Master Ryan's proposal. Through the Marquis of the North Wind, the Cathedral of Light and Baron Ryan signed a 3-year agreement. Every 3 months, Baron Ryan will provide 10,000 birch bark books, worth 5 silver coins per book. The price is high, but this is normal. In this world, books are themselves a precious carrier. Even if it is replaced by those books that can bear extraordinary inheritance of knowledge, it is even more priceless. This is almost the reason why ordinary people are illiterate. Buying such a book can make them have to eat dirt for a long time. 10,000 books every 3 months, at a ratio of 1 to 20 to 100, that's 2,500 gold coins. That's 10,000 gold coins a year, and the value of this deal is visibly high. Ryan never underestimated the value of 10,000 gold coins, even though he had earned a lot of wealth through many means. He understood that only a steady stream of money could really make money, and that it was just luck to make quick money once or twice. Books are expensive, but these books will eventually appear in the homes of those who may not be able to afford a book in their lifetime for free. It's even possible that they will be given to civilians for free along with good things like sending eggs and bread. Bread can fill people's stomachs, and eggs are one of the few foods that civilians can use to supplement protein every once in a while. The church used to do this, and now the Empire has begun to replicate it. It seems that soon, the greatness of the God of Light will be known to countless people. When they encounter trouble in the future, they will pray to the God of Light in their hearts. Slowly, the royal family will combine Columbus with the God of Light and completely occupy the divine power and royal power. That's why Ryan said that the essence of this war of faith is an economic war. For the common people of the Empire, they will believe in whoever sends them the best and the most. At least, it must be like this in the initial contact. 10,000 books in 3 months, is this a sign of respect for me or a sign of contempt for me? Ryan smiled. Through his suggestions and some descriptions, as well as the people from another world who have inherited the skills, the manufacturing industry in the frozen territory has been at least 10 times more efficient than the North Wind province. The process of selecting, felling, steaming, pulping, pressing, drying and other processes for making birch bark books has changed from the horrible stage to the current assembly line, and each process has strict standards. The number of 10,000 books in 3 months may be a big pressure for other territories of the same size, but for the frozen territory, it is only 1/3 of the number. And it will not affect the reclamation, planting and foraging. The cost is even more compressed than imagined. A completely completed birch bark book, from production to delivery to the North Wind Marquis, will not cost more than 30 copper coins. The cost of a book does not exceed 1/3 of a silver coin, but it can be sold for 5 silver coins, which means a profit of 15 or 16 times. Master Ryan smiled more. Chapter 265 Miracles and Life Magic. Free things are often accompanied by invisible costs at this moment. The Imperial Cathedral of Light obviously could not wait for 3 months, so after the news from the south confirmed the transaction with the frozen territory, it also brought a large number of objects to spread the faith of the God of Light. Marcus B. Fenn, the patron of light, a nobleman with divine grace, showed a miracle. Because of the war, the spring plowing in Thundercloud County, especially in the former territory of Count Weiss, was later than that of all the nobles. It was for this reason that the harvest on this land this year would be very low. If winter came earlier and colder, many civilians and slaves would die this year. This is the impact of the war, and only those who are deeply involved in it can understand it. How much benefit those nobles gained and how much wealth they lost because of the victory in the war are just numbers, but those numbers will eventually fall on the heads of the lowest serfs. The miracle shown by Marcus B. Feng is in this regard. He released a huge range of divine arts, and in his words, it is said that this is a gift from the God of Light that only the Columbus royal family can master. So, just like that, the brilliance of the divine art fell in his hands, covering the sea of clouds in the sky, and then a heavy rain fell. Under the heavy rain, the wheat seedlings in the farmland grew vigorously. In one day, the wheat was ripe. How rich is the divinity? Ryan was shocked. The miracle performed by the Marquis of Befen covered an area of about 15 miles in radius and 15,000 meters in diameter. He was also standing in the center of the largest farmland in Lyon County. This scale, apart from the power of the gods, even legends cannot compare. The blessing of divinity only brought this rain. The real power is in the rain. I feel the unique vitality of life magic. Archmage McKen also returned to the frozen land from the wilderness world. He looked at the sky in the south. Even though he was 2 counties away, the Archmage could feel the boiling magic factor in the void. You mean, some kind of life magic was diluted by the heavy rain and fell on the wheat seedlings on the ground, causing them to change directly from a growing state to a mature state? That's right. Archmage McKen looked at Ryan in surprise. It would be difficult for him to understand such a thing if he was not a magician, but in Ryan's mouth, this matter was very common. It should be some kind of powerful life magic that spread to the sky with a diameter of 15,000 meters through the heavy rain, and then was brought down by the rain. Those legendary life magicians actually researched something. Is it possible to release this kind of life magic on a large scale? Ryan asked seriously. The productivity of this world is too poor if only ordinary people are considered, but if extraordinary factors are added, everything will become unfamiliar to him. Just like now, within a day, the wheat seedlings in the farmland are mature and can be harvested directly. If this kind of thing can be widely used, it will have earth-shaking changes for the empire that is already in the agricultural society stage. Gods? Thought gods, they can't compare to increasing grain production tenfold or 100-fold. I'm afraid it's difficult. Archmage McKen shook his head and said, the life magic is either solidified on the magic scroll, or a magic potion with a corresponding effect is made through this magic, but the cost will not be cheap. In addition, the scale of the heavy rain consumed a lot of divinity. No matter how much divinity the royal family has, it can't withstand such a waste. Ryan understood. Indeed, divinity was used in this miracle. Then the cost of this miracle is much higher than the price of wheat in the farmland within the 15,000-meter diameter. The appearance of miracles is not for increasing production, but for the spread of faith. I don't know how many people have firmly become believers of the God of Light because of this heavy rain. Father, can the Lord double the beans in my farmland? In a few days, I will have to hand over 150 kilograms of grain to the Lord, but in this case, our family can only keep 30 kilograms, which is much less than last year. Maybe my mother will starve to death in the winter this year. The rough farmer lowered his head and refused the missionary's healing skills, wanting to exchange for some miracles. The missionary was powerless to do anything about this. The gift of the dawn could make him a doctor, but it could not make him a god and create food out of thin air. We failed. Gathering together, several missionaries lowered their heads and told the archbishop about their failure to spread faith during this period. In this land, light is more easily recognized than dawn, and those pioneers of light, including the local nobles of the North Wind province, are promoting it. The former is really for the spread of light, while the latter wants to use it to offset the influence of the missionaries of the Dawn Church who passed by their territory not long ago. Perhaps the dawn of our Lord will never illuminate this dark land again. The missionaries were frustrated. This was the failure of their believers. The heresy of the empire deceived the ignorant civilians. The archbishop with big red waves did not speak. Unlike the frustration of the missionaries, her eyes were always pious and firm. This is just a little suffering given to us by our Lord, frozen territory. Ryan knew that with a miracle, those books would be delivered without any worries. Free lunch would bring devout faith. The God of Light would soon gain a foothold in the land of the North Wind province, and the empire's plan would also be successful. Expensive miracles. Ryan no longer had many ideas. He found Master Yelena. If it weren't for the problem of this genius mage's background, she might have already become famous. Since miracles are expensive and difficult to replicate, then being down to earth has become the only choice. These seeds can adapt to the cold of frozen soil more effectively. Their survival rate in the soil exceeds 80%. They cannot be planted this year, but we can select a test field for planting. If successful, we can produce 5 to 10 kilograms of grain per acre of land next year. However, the cultivation value of seeds is a bit high. On average, it costs 1 silver coin per acre, and the materials used are all magical crops. Wait until 3 to 5 years later, when the seeds are stable from generation to generation, we can cancel the investment of this part of the cost. Ryan's eyes widened and he nodded excitedly. Yelena, who didn't understand many things, almost jumped up in her eyes. Ryan knew very well what changes this improvement would bring to the frozen oil territory and the land where Ryan's influence could radiate in the future. People depend on food for their livelihood. If he mastered food production, he would be everyone's god. Chapter 266 Death and Expulsion. Finally, when the missionaries were traveling through Northwind County, a team was sent from the Earl William family in the Southern Highlands province. The pale-skinned vampires transformed from humans were not particularly afraid of the sun, and they could still walk around freely when the weather was cool. They made the corpses come alive, or more precisely, they made the corpses speak. Through the words that no one could understand, people wondered whether these vampires were necromancers or demons from the abyss under their skin. In short, it was determined that the assassins came from the church, and the order came from the Pope. Find them out and hand them over to the governor. Earl Winter and Earl Solon gave the order at the first time. They had an advantage that other nobles did not have, that is, Catman assassins. At the same time, the nobles of several counties in the Northwind province began to search their respective territories. No matter how secretive the assassins were, they would leave traces in various ways. No one knew how many Black Swan assassins the church had sent to the Northwind province, but when all the nobles in this province began to exert their strength, the assassins could not hide completely. The assassin who was found was not that scary, just a stronger transcendent. Boom! The iron hooves trampled on the muddy land, raising dry dust. Perhaps the heavy rain in Lyon County brought too much rain, and there was not a drop of rain in the Northwind province for the next half a month. In the dust, the knights hunted the assassins from the church, and the nobles also endured the counterattack of these black swans in despair. In the land of the Northwind province, with the arrival of those pioneering lords, there is not much land that is unowned. In this case, the assassins of the church can't hide for too long, unless their food falls from the sky. Any stranger who appears in the territory of any noble will be discovered at the first time, so it is difficult for those assassins to obtain food from the territory. A few cities may be their only choice. The Northwind province borders the northern border of winter, and the nights here are also very cold. They either kill civilians and live in their houses, or rest in the city. As for the wild, Ryan knows very well that they don't have so many warm equipment. These assassins don't look like they can rely on blood and ki to fight the cold. So, the more desperate the situation, the crazier it is. A lot of people are going to die. Just as Ryan thought, the number of black swans is more than expected. Some tips from Earl Winter have exceeded 100 black swans. These assassins were forced to survive and began to give up their lives under devout faith. In their continuous assassinations, more than 30 pioneers of light were killed, and those lords who came north died in the assassination. The price paid by the church was the painful death of more than 100 Black Swan assassins. But how can the lives of assassins be compared with those of nobles? The lords panicked, and the Marquess of Northwind also panicked. The panic of the Marquess led to the extraordinary people in the Marquess's territory to start taking action and completely cut off all the ways of life for the Black Swan assassins. So, when the legendary knight left Thundercloud Mountain and began to sweep across the haze of Thundercloud County, 43 assassins climbed Thundercloud Mountain. On this day, the people of the Marquisate once again saw a miracle, when the sky was split by golden sunlight and shone on the mountain. Thousands of people knelt on the ground and called for light devoutly, but the face of the Marquis of Bifang on Thundercloud Mountain was not sunny at all. Beside him, 3 lords lay. These lords came here again to be protected by him because of fear of assassination. But they still died. Even the divine power nurtured in his body was forced to be activated. The power that could fight against legends was actually used on a group of assassins. How dare they? How dare they try to kill me? Looking at the furious Marquis of Bifang, some lords began to get nervous. Yes, even the Marquis of Bifang was assassinated. They might not be as safe as their elders said when they came to Bifang province. It's too dangerous here. I am now declaring the charges against you as an imperial knight. You participated in killing the Lord of the Empire, the noble personally appointed by the Columbus royal family, the pioneer favored by the god of light, and tried to assassinate the Marquis of the North Wind of the Empire. In the name of the Imperial Knights, I will judge and expel you. As the legendary knight Mulan finished speaking, the gargoyles behind him rushed towards the missionaries below from the sky. Run, Adriana shouted loudly, while holding the church token on her chest. The next moment, the sky was illuminated by the snow-white holy light. The archbishop was bathed in the holy light, sacred and noble. His eyes had turned from human pupils into pure white majestic eyes, and 3 pairs of illusory wings appeared behind him. In the name of the morning light, I declare you, guilty of death. Above the sky, the white sharp blades fell from the sky and fell towards the gargoyles, but before that, the legendary knight had already arrived on the top of the gargoyles. The blood was strong and the power of legends was always an adjective. When he raised his head and punched upward, all the magic disappeared. I will expel you as an imperial knight. Boom. Knight Mulan came to the archbishop and punched the archbishop's chest. The sound of broken bones was clearly audible. Even with a blessing and magic, Adriana was still no match for the legend. Blood was splattered, and the archbishop fell to the north, and the legend behind him was still chasing. She knew that she could not save those devout believers. They are all believers of my Lord. They entered the empire with me as messengers, she shouted loudly, and the 6 wings behind her were gone. Her eyes were full of pain and unwillingness. But they don't have a token, threatening the lives of the imperial nobles. They must die. Within the rules, these missionaries can do anything. Since there is evidence of the assassination and the incident has happened, then this is war. Outside the rules, killing those missionaries is not a problem. Only Adriana in front of him had a more sensitive identity. The news brought from the south had already let the Marquis of Northwind know why the Black Swan assassin appeared in the Northwind province. It was because on the battlefield in the south, the rising star of the Myers family killed a future cardinal, and there was a revenge from a person who might be the Pope. Adriana in front of him was no less important than the one who was killed. Therefore, she would only be expelled. The archbishop was running, with magic blessing on her body, and the legend behind him followed far away, until the other party disappeared in the north. The legendary knight turned around and went back. The glory of the dawn will not end in any dark place, the missionary yelled while coughing up blood, and then the magic flooded his body, releasing the last magic. It was not powerful, but his piety was sensed by the gods and sent back to the Dawn Church. In the end, he did not resist anything, but just passed the message back to the church. The assassination drove the Marquis of the Northwind completely crazy, and in the frozen territory, Ryan's scalp tingled as he watched Archbishop Adriana, who came to his castle covered in blood. Chapter 267, The War of Faithans. The political struggle begins. What to do? Should I kill her? To be fair, Ryan always stands on the side of the empire. Even if there is no empire, he has no good feelings towards the existence of the church. The privileges and status brought by faith have corrupted the Lord's royal power. He had noticed that the missionaries of the church had a way to detect that he had touched the Dawn doctrine, so he had the intention to kill these people and wrote those letters. If the Marquis of the Northwind could kill these missionaries, Ryan would be happy to see that the church might never know some things, and Ryan would be spared a lot of trouble. Looking at the archbishop in front of him, Ryan did not make up his mind for a long time. There was no way. He thought that it would be difficult for him now to kill the legendary knight, let alone make no sound. So Your Excellency the Archbishop, why are you here again? Ryan ignored the blood on the other party and asked. Sir Ryan, Adriana saluted Ryan and said, I am leaving now. Please believe that the light of the dawn will shine on this land in the near future. Ryan frowned. Archbishop, I said I am not a believer of the dawn, I am a baron of the empire. Adriana did not explain anything, but handed a token to Ryan. The Snow Eagle is the mount I captured in the north. It cannot go back to the south with me, so I give it to you, Sir Ryan. Ryan's eyes lit up. Archbishop, do you want to use holy water to heal your injury? The Archbishop of Big Wave in front of him was also stunned, only to see that Ryan had already taken out the holy water. This was still her gift to him. Bathed in the light of the holy water, the Archbishop's complexion was visibly better. Thank you. Both of them had a strange expression. This was originally something from the Holy See, but now the Archbishop of the Holy See needed to thank him. But Ryan was professionally trained and would not reveal his expression. Sir Ryan, the light of dawn will surely dispel the coldness of the north. As he left, the Archbishop's expression was extremely serious. Of course I believe in the power of the gods. Looking at the Archbishop heading towards the Andorra Kingdom, Ryan guessed that he would use the power of the Feathered Dragon Legion to return to the south. So the matter in the Northwind province is over? I'm afraid not. These missionaries of the church are just scouts. What kind of information will they send back to the church? Ryan didn't know, but information like stubbornness and difficulty in education must be indispensable. The information they conveyed will determine the church's true attitude towards the North Wind province. The next time, it may not be a few missionaries and some shady assassins. My Lord Marcus, under your wise and powerful command, the missionaries of the Holy See will no longer dare to covet the land of the Empire. This is the victory of the Empire, and it also belongs to your glory. Garter, this is not only mine, but also yours. I will not ignore the credit of the North Wind province. The Marquis of the North Wind laughed happily, and the lords around him echoed him. He reported the deaths of those lords back to the south of the empire as quickly as possible, but unexpectedly, the royal family and the great nobles did not have too much anger about the deaths of these lords, but only told them that the matter would be blamed on the Holy See. The Marquis of the North Wind did not care about the rest of the warning that he must not let the nobles die again. What a joke! The Holy See had been repelled by him. How could there be nobles killing each other in the North Wind province itself? Suddenly thinking of Lingdu County, the Marquis of the North Wind restrained his smile. Write a letter and ask Viscount Miles and Viscount Dragon to come see me. The death of these pioneering lords, even if serious, would not happen within the Empire, but on the battlefield in the south. However, the death of a Viscount, no matter how he died, is a major event in the Empire. For a long time, this matter will not be buried. My Lord Marcus, the North Wind province will be yours in the future. Do you think you can consider the wealth that belongs to you? Lord Gardel next to him suggested. This descendant from the ancient Rose family has now become a military advisor in the circle. Gardel, what do you mean? Wealth from another world? As a Marquis and governor, how can you watch other small nobles gain so much? You have been canonized, and your future economic source will depend on your own territory, Gardel reminded, making the Marquis of the North Wind react. Indeed, it is not visible in the short term, but in the long run, without a stable source of wealth, it will not work. Relying on farming alone, he can create miracles every day, so it is definitely not feasible. Is that so, Baron? My master asked me to tell you that the Marquis summoned him and Viscount Dragon to Thundercloud Mountain. A servant who looked like a butler came to the frozen territory and informed Ryan of the matter. Two Viscounts, Ryan blinked. He was still dealing with the faith of the God of Light, so it was probably not aimed at him. Then, it was the death of the previous Viscount Dragon. The death of a Viscount noble had not made any noise before, but this did not mean that this incident did not cause fluctuations in the southern part of the empire. The letter delivered by the Clayton family mentioned this matter, and the nobles even used it to question the royal family. The subsequent light pioneers came to the North Wind province, and some of the lords from the noble families were able to obtain this fiefdom and title, which was also due to this question. The two Viscounts were not so stupid. It would be fine if they simply called themselves, but if they called each other, then there was only one thing that could be connected. Viscount Miles was naturally a little panicked, so he sent someone to tell Baron Ryan, hoping that he would have some solution. What can I do about this? Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly. Of course, this matter belongs to the two Viscount families, and he will not get involved. It is not impossible to continue to weaken the majesty of the two Viscounts in Lingdu County. 5 days later, Master Ryan, who was inspecting the progress of the terraced fields and frightened a group of serfs, received a letter from afar. With his palms clenched, some hard letters were crushed by him. I didn't expect that the Marquis's thinking was so fast. As soon as the missionaries of the Holy See left, he turned around and set his sights on the big piece of meat in the other world. The letter in Ryan's hand came from a noble in Lyon County. After all, he still had some land there and had a good relationship with the nobles around him. More importantly, in the eyes of the Marquis of Bifeng, the bright pioneers who followed him to Bifeng province, those lords were his own people, and the others, even the nobles of Lyon County, had to rank behind. This ranking also directly led to the division of interests. So, Baron Ryan received the letter as soon as possible. Chapter 268, The Glory of Our Ancestors, respected by our Lord Viscount Dragon. Ryan believed that it was not just him, but also the two earls of the North Wind province and the other 3 county governors who had received similar letters. 2 days ago, the Marquis of the North Wind organized a group of troops to enter the other world. This army had a total of 3,000 people, and the soldiers came from the Marquisate and the soldiers brought by those lords from the south. Baron Ryan, you have to think of a way. I definitely can't go to the imperial capital, The wealth and land of my Miles family must not be lost. If so, I will become the sinner of the entire Miles family. Christian Miles, now Viscount Miles, was anxious like a frog being boiled in boiling water in the castle on the Rhino Horn Mountain, and he didn't even care about the exquisite food and fruit wine on the table. Viscount Miles, you'd better calm down. At the beginning, Viscount Miles killed Viscount Dragon in public. No one can fake this, killing a noble in the Empire, and a Viscount. I believe old Viscount Miles will know the consequences. Viscount Miles lowered his head, but gritted his teeth. But I can't let the family's land slip away from my hands. I can't become Miles's sinner. You take a rest in the castle first. I'll help you think of a way to calm this matter down with other costs. Master Ryan sighed and shook his head, which made Viscount Miles look overjoyed. When Viscount Miles left, Ryan looked at Beard. Has our Lord Viscount Dragon not come yet? His tone was slightly sarcastic. The reason why he agreed to Viscount Miles was because of this matter. That is, after returning from Thundercloud County, Viscount Miles immediately came to the frozen territory in a hurry, but Viscount Dragon, that Tostan dragon, did not make any movement. Yes, sir, Beard said honestly. Give him another day. Ryan's eyes revealed coldness. He never thought that after he occupied the dominant power and voice in Lingdu County, all the nobles would stand behind him loyally, but he did not expect that this day would come so soon. It seems that he has calmed down in the haze of war. Ryan has a lot of wealth. In addition to the frozen land, there are many places in Lingdu County that belong to him. For example, most of his wealth is in the Ice Peak Forest. The magic crystals used by the mages in the frozen land come from there. For example, in Lingdu City, he has a street. In the past year or so, it has been managed in an orderly manner, and the wealth it can bring in every quarter is considerable. In the territory of Viscount Dragon, he also has some assets, but because Viscount Dragon is not like Miles after all, Ryan is not easy to let him cede land, so most of the wealth is presented in the form of economy. A day later, Ryan was chatting and laughing at the dinner table with Viscount Miles. He still did not wait for Viscount Dragon to arrive. Mr. Christian, my friend, I have been thinking about this for a day. This matter may not be without a chance, although it was on the battlefield. Old Viscount Miles killed Viscount Dragon. There are two key points here, aren't there? Ryan said, and Viscount Miles had already pricked up his ears, unwilling to miss any word. War and Viscount Dragon died on the battlefield. For the nobles, this is not a shame. Our ancestors, the first nobles, fought with foreign races, and each of them was proud to die on the battlefield. In the precepts of every noble family, there is a glorious glory of fighting to the death. The will and glory of our ancestors are sleeping deep in the blood of each of us nobles. This is why we are noble. Yes, that's right. Viscount Miles straightened his chest. Every noble would tell the glory of his family. It was one of their few prides. This is also an eternal topic for nobles to communicate and chat with each other. The death of Viscount Dragon was never a conspiracy, nor was it evil. He appeared on the battlefield with a noble status. The old Viscount Dragon had ambitions that were no less than the ancestors of the Dragon family, and Viscount Miles, although old, still respects and praises Viscount Dragon's ambition to not disgrace his ancestors and even bring the Dragon family to new heights. So, although your father already needed help to move, he resolutely chose the most ancient way of aristocratic blood, the glorious duel. Unfortunately, Viscount Miles failed to stop in the end, and Viscount Dragon died. The magic Zenith sword is worthy of being the most powerful magical offensive means under the Grand Mage. I thought about it for a whole day, and finally figured out that the death of the two Viscounts was never dark, but a tribute to the glory of their ancestors. For so many years, perhaps we, the unworthy descendants, have forgotten our ancestors and how great their glory was. Ryan looked up, with tears falling from the corners of his eyes. If I hadn't heard that some nobles had fallen on the battlefield in the south, I might not have remembered the history that I read as stories when I was young. What kind of cruelty did our ancestors go through to firmly occupy our human land from the hands of foreign races, so that today's descendants of us will not be drowned by the cold of the north? Viscount Miles, do you know that in the winter, even the days when food cannot be grown, even the orcs can't stand it? Praise the great light, praise our glorious ancestors. Ryan's expression and eyes were pious and awed, and Viscount Miles opposite him was already stagnant in place. Is that so? He still didn't quite understand. You must go to the Imperial City, Viscount Miles. If you don't know what to say, Just tell the nobles in the south what I said. Oh, by the way, don't mention me. Remember, you must say it before everyone else speaks. The death of Viscount Dragon is a heavy loss for the Northern Wind Province and the entire empire, but at the same time we also respect Viscount Dragon's death immensely. In him, we see our great ancestors. However, Viscount Miles killed Viscount Dragon. This is a fact. Because of the failure of old Viscount Miles, the empire lost a noble bloodline with the ambition of a noble ancestor. For this, the Miles family needs to compensate Dragon, a lot of compensation. Hearing this familiar word, Viscount Miles finally understood. But the Miles family doesn't have much wealth anymore. If I continue to pay, I will lose everything except the land. He could never decide to let him lose his land. Now that he was talking about compensation, it also made him extremely heartbroken. It's okay, Christian, we have been making money in Lingdu County recently, haven't we? Ryan looked at Viscount Miles and said with a smile. Besides, my frozen land territory is being developed, and I will provide work instead of relief. The people of your territory can come here to help me, and I will pay you, well. The Miles family may be very busy at that time, and I will appropriately give some orders for weapons and shields to the Miles family for forging. The orders are of course from the Andorra Kingdom and the Southern Chamber of Commerce of the Empire. As for where the extra orders come from? Of course, it comes from the Dragon family. Chapter 269 Economic Blockade. After getting the solution, Viscount Miles was not so anxious. Ryan didn't know whether Viscount Miles would be smooth after going to the south, but the plan against Viscount Dragon's family had already begun. What's going on? How come the quality of your weapons has deteriorated so much this month? Can this kind of spear be considered a weapon? The ones used to carry manure are of better quality than these. We can't collect even a single bit. Take it back yourselves, okay? No need to keep it anymore. We have to hurry to the next house. Jasmine Tree Tea? There's no demand for it in other territories recently, so you can keep it for yourselves. Rotten? So what if it's rotten? This kind of thing is inherently risky. The mountain tea from our frozen territory that has been popular in the North Wind Province recently grows on cliffs of 1,500 meters high mountains. Each tea tree is only half a meter tall, and it takes 3 years to grow a batch of tea leaves. How do you pick it? Haha, our wise and mighty master recaptured a snow eagle. How do you think he picked it, and persimmons? These are good things, but you know, almost half of this year has passed, and winter is about to come. My master said that this winter will be very cold, so we have to prepare more supplies for the winter. Although persimmons can also be used as food storage, the cost effectiveness is too low, and you won't be full, so we won't accept them anymore. You can continue to mine those green stones, but we won't accept them this year. My master was assassinated by an assassin before because the stones here are of poor quality. The assassin broke them in a few strokes. He planned to transport a batch of stones engraved with magic patterns from the south to build a castle. This is related to the safety of the master's life. If I dare to accept your stones, will I still be alive? In the end, the huge team went away, leaving the head of the dragon family standing there in a daze. Master, this is what happened, and it's not just that they don't accept our things. Recently, people in Tishan County and other territories don't exchange materials with us. We can't make any profit at all. The Blade Rose Chamber of Commerce and the Lantern Chamber of Commerce have arrived in Lingdu City. This is their last visit to Bifang Province this year, but it is said that they have collected too many materials. Their transportation team can't carry more materials, so they only collect 30% of the previous amount, the person in charge cried in front of Viscount Dragon. As soon as he finished speaking, he was met with the expected anger. You useless piece of trash. You can't even do this. So many supplies, weapons and other things can be recycled, but what about the rest? That's my wealth, don't worry about it anymore. My wealth has been wasted like this by you. Your family will never be able to pay it back in 10 lifetimes. Go be a serf for me. Viscount Dragon was furious. He didn't know how much money he had lost, but he knew how much wealth he had lost. Hearing his words, the person in charge of the matter on the other side turned pale and knelt down. Master, spare me. Master, spare me. After crying for a long time, he finally thought of the excuse he had thought of before. Master, I know. It's not our problem at all. They are targeting us, Master, think about it. Even if our quality is problematic and they don't accept it. What about other things? They have no reason to not want them. Besides, There are other noble territories. We are exchanging goods with those civilians and serfs. They wanted them before. If their nobles didn't allow it, how could they not want our resources? It must be like this, master. We are not wrong at all. They did it on purpose. The person in charge burst into tears. He couldn't imagine what his family's life would be like after becoming serfs. Thinking about the days of the serfs who were exploited by him before, the person in charge couldn't help trembling. Is that so? Viscount Dragon said with some doubts. It must be like this, master. Think about it. Almost in an instant, the things of your Viscount can no longer be traded with others. Even those chambers of commerce don't want your iron weapons. I heard that the person in charge of the Blade Rose Chamber of Commerce in the Northwind Province has some relationship with Baron Ryan. Maybe, he didn't dare to continue, but Viscount Dragon believed it a little at this moment. Get out. If you don't do it well next time, your whole family will become slaves. Yes, thank you, sir, for your mercy. The person in charge almost crawled out of the room, and he couldn't help but stumble as soon as he walked out. He had smashed it this time, but what about the next time? He was extremely afraid. As a person with some knowledge and brains, he almost understood that if the Viscount didn't handle this matter well, the team from the frozen land would definitely not accept anything from him next time. Baron Ryan in the study, Viscount Dragon's eyes were gloomy. He went to the castle of the Marquis of Northwind with the Viscount Miles not long ago, and he did make some different decisions from before. That is to make his father's death implicate Baron Ryan and tell the Marquis that if Baron Ryan's army had not appeared on the battlefield at that time, his father would not have died at all. This little bit of involvement was enough, and the Marquis was also very happy. He kept the soldiers he brought with him and would develop the other world plane with the Marquis army. It is said that all the gargoyles followed in, and even the powerful legendary knight was in the pioneering team. Legend, such a person can definitely gain huge wealth in the development of the army. Viscount Dragon was tempted at the time. Now it seems that he seems to be impulsive. Baron Ryan noticed something. Bang! I am not wrong. Damn Ryan, Lingdu County should belong to Viscount Dragon's family, but now it is in the hands of a baron. It's all Ryan, it's all his fault. Frozen territory leader. Ryan crawled out from between the two white flowers and weighed the soft weight in his hand. There were some teeth marks and red marks left by mistakes or intentions. This must be 1 pound. Ryan's action woke the other party up, and Irina, the manager of the Blade Rose, opened her hazy eyes. You have only come to the Northwind Province twice this year. Are you not going to come in the second half of the year? Irina shook her head. She suspected that she had a concussion and her voice was a little hoarse. Well, in the second half of the year, we will cooperate with a steward in the south to carry out trade activities in the south of the empire. The war in the south needs manpower, and at the end of the year, the Earl will come back from the West Sea, and everyone has to show themselves. That female countess, Ryan was a little curious, but obviously, as a follower of the Earl, Irina didn't say much even at this time. Loyalty is a very noble quality, whether it is loyalty from the lower to the upper or loyalty from the upper to the lower. As her mind gradually cleared up from the turbidity, Irina also began to inquire about the news here. You asked me to refuse the supplies from Viscount Dragon. Is there something wrong? Is that Viscount planning to start a war again? Not him, Ryan said casually. His eyes became clear, and he didn't know whether this would be a war. It's late again. The old rules, compensation. Chapter 270, War in Another World. Irina had great admiration for Baron Ryan. She could be said to have witnessed Baron Ryan's transformation from a barren frozen land to a powerful province. Thinking about it day and night, she didn't understand how Ryan did it. But she couldn't help but be curious. Because as a businessman, especially in such a simple transaction, she could calculate that even if the Lantern Chamber of Commerce was added, the number of weapons and equipment produced by Lingdu County far exceeded the scale of their acquisition. She suspected that she had a competitor. Is there anyone else buying the weapons of the frozen land? Merchants are also sources of information and intelligence. She instinctively wanted to understand the background of this matter. However, facing this question, Ryan just slapped it down, causing waves to ripple. Pa. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. It's not your competitor. You only have one competitor, right in front of you. Irina glanced at the other corpse next to her. The Baron's female official was pretending to sleep, but the temperament of the other party was still not comparable to hers. Only when she almost had a concussion did she realize the similarity between the two of them. At that moment, she stood up and left. With the care of a group of maids, Ryan spent more than an hour to completely reach the study room where he could see most of the frozen land. Master, the watchtower has been completed. So fast, Ryan was a little surprised. Lord Brock forged it himself. He said that the people in their world are not only blacksmiths, but also craftsmen who are good at everything. His power is very strong, and when Lord Brock takes action, other knights dare not stand by and watch, so the construction of the watchtower is very fast. According to preliminary attempts, the watchtower can defend against the power of no more than second-level monsters within a range of 1,000 meters. Lord Etria said that it can be opened up to terraced fields on more distant mountains. Butler Beard is very clear about his identity. In the frozen land, he has a master above him, that is, Ryan. In addition, he also needs to respect the other three people. Brand, Brock and Etria. Although he didn't need to do this, he knew very well how much his master Ryan valued these three. Therefore, he also had to respect the three people according to the attitude of Master Ryan. Then get ready, tell Miles to start arranging people to come to work. Also, is there any movement in the south? In the past, the south that Ryan mentioned was the south of the Frozen Land territory, which was the noble territory of Baron Barton and Viscount Miles. Now, the south that Ryan mentioned is the south of Lingdu County, which is the rest of the Northwind province. According to your wishes, I have arranged some smart guys to go to Leon County, but it is difficult to find out their identities. No useful results have been sent back yet. I only know that the army that entered the other plane for development will be back in 2 days. That Marcus did not follow the 10-day principle. Is that so? Ryan laughed. It's good to not follow the rules. He likes this kind of not following the rules. I think the Marcus didn't follow the rules when he was in the other world. Get ready. I also plan to go to the other plane. So much time has passed. Don't let Marcus B. Fang expose the gold mine and Amber Jade. 2 days is enough for Ryan to reach Thundercloud Mountain with light equipment. When he arrived here, he happened to see that the portal to the other world plane was wide open, and a large number of beasts and resources were sent out. The air was filled with blood, not only on the food, but also on the soldiers. Is this a war with the natives? Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly, and then went to pay a visit to Marcus B. Fang. My lord Marcus. Marcus B. Fang was in high spirits and looked at Ryan with a smile. Baron Ryan, come and sit down and try the meat jerky I just hunted from the other world plane. This is a good thing. The resources of a world are of course abundant, Ryan exclaimed, and then asked some details about the Cathedral of Light. The Empire needs the faith of the God of Light. The great God of Light will protect the success of the Empire. The Empire will definitely win the war in the south. Marcus B. Fang was extremely confident, and he would not have a second answer. The next day, Ryan also entered the other world. For the Marcus of Northwind who had tasted the sweetness, he naturally sent troops into it. However, this time he did not see the legendary knight. The most powerful magic beast in the other world is not a match for the legendary beast. After hunting a few, the legendary knight stopped attacking. As for other aspects, even the legendary knight can't tell where the treasure is just by looking at it. The extraordinary knight has many advantages, but it is not good at other aspects except destructive power. Shortly after entering the other world, Ryan and the Marquis's army parted ways and went to the Blue Lion tribe. Where are the people? Looking at the mess in front of him, Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly. The soldiers behind him did not need to be commanded and quickly went to explore in all directions. It seems that our Lord Marquis's methods are more cruel than I thought. Walking on the ruins, Ryan looked at some traces preserved here. Obviously, there has been a bloody war here. Let me think, when those natives went to look for their own people, which direction did they go? After several exchanges, and the fact that the natives' brains were not very good, Ryan also roughly knew in which direction the safe house of the natives of the Green Lion tribe was. Let's go, try our luck over there. Ryan still needed these natives, so he would not give up just like that. The team moved slowly, and the war horses shuttled through the mountains and forests very seriously, but even so, it was still inevitable that sometimes the feet slipped and fell down the slope with both the people and the horses. The group came to a river and a cliff. In this kind of terrain, no matter how good the northern war horses were, they could not continue to move forward. However, it was not very necessary. In the mountains and forests, wooden spears were thrown out, but Ryan brought all well-trained knights and attendants, Who blocked these wooden spears with shields? Kill these damn aliens. The natives rushed out with a clamor, and were pressed to the ground in 3 or 5 strokes. Why, you're using the weapons I gave you to fight me. Is that the tradition of your Blue Lion tribe? Ryan smiled as he looked at the warriors pinned to the ground. They were all acquaintances, half of whom he had blessed. You? The natives looked a little embarrassed when they saw Ryan. But the anger and resentment in their eyes did not disappear. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271, Rescue from Master Ryan. Seeing the leader of the Blue Lion tribe, Cao, again, Ryan remained calm. Tell me, what happened? Your soldiers burned our tribe and killed my people, Cao angrily questioned Ryan. You are all in the same group. It seems that you have not had a smooth time in the past few days. Ryan nodded, then looked at Cao. Why, do you think we are in the same group? You all come from another world, you are nobles of an empire. There was an angry roar from the native, and he looked at Ryan with resentment. According to what you said, your Blue Lion tribe and Black Bear tribe are also in the same group, is that right? Ryan's question obviously made the native a little upset. What nonsense are you talking about? Our Blue Lion tribe and Black Bear tribe are enemies for generations. Just yesterday they came to rob our people, but you also live in this world. Ryan waved his hand. Interesting, you think I'm in the same group with the army that's at war with you, just because I come from the same place as them, but you don't allow me to think of you and the Black Bear tribe as the same group. Don't you think there's a problem? Well, Ryan said, looking at these natives staring at each other, they really didn't think there was a problem. Forget it. I'm too lazy to talk to you so much. A big man has come to the empire, his status is much higher than mine, and the original contract was not signed by this big man. Are you going to get close to them by trading with me? Funny, a group of noble descendants with extraordinary backgrounds, how could they talk well with these barbaric natives? If it weren't for the fact that the nobles of the Northwind province got along well with these natives because of Ryan, which led to inertia, these natives would have been hunted down to the end by those noble lords. This is also their fun. Don't forget, there are never many nobles willing to trade with you. I am the first one, now there is no village. You are a really failed leader of the tribe? Ryan shook his head and pointed at the trough. However, the Blue Lion tribe is like this, and other tribes are not much better. The Blue Lion tribe is already the most powerful tribe in this alien plane. Tell me, what happened? After a commotion, Ryan finally understood what happened in the past few days. The first thing the Marquis of Bifen and a group of lords entered the alien plane world was to capture the natives to lead them. They would not care about anything, whether it was the lords or the soldiers who came to Bifang province from the south. This process naturally led to conflicts. The army ignored the words of the natives and asked the natives to offer their prey. Of course, because of Ryan's previous search, even if the native tribe was broken, the army did not find many valuable treasures. As the war started, the captured natives began to use the geographical advantage to fight against the army, causing the army to suffer heavy losses. At the cost of this, the heads of the natives rolled down one by one. After that, the natives kept harassing the army, but the legendary knight was too powerful. Well, because of the legend and the gargoyles he brought, all the natives were just harassment to the army. Of course, the natives were defeated and had to hide in the mountains and forests, where the army could not find them. After hearing everything, it was not too unexpected for Ryan, but he looked at Cao. You didn't lose all my things, did you? His eyes were a little cold. If the gold mine and amber jade were discovered by the Marquis of the North Wind, the consequences would be disastrous. No, Cao said a little embarrassedly. At that time, the tribe was very angry and thought that you betrayed the deal with us and threw all your things into the river. Ryan could imagine that the way these barbarians retaliated against him was to destroy his property in this almost childish way. But there was a smile on his face again. It's okay, we can find it back when the time comes. I can find a way to help you solve the problems you encounter, but remember this, Ryan pointed to the flag in his team. The outline of Rhinohorn Mountain was woven on the rectangular flag. This is the same group as me. Even the names are different. How could you be so stupid as to think that those people are the same as me? Is it difficult to distinguish the Green Lion tribe and the Black Bear tribe from the names? Most of the natives still didn't understand what Ryan said, but fortunately, as long as these guys with a little brains understood it, it would be fine. I will give you a flag. You take it back and plant it on your own tribe. Then no one will bother you. By the way, the Black Bear tribe robbed your people. Ryan looked at the native who had just yelled. Isn't it true what I said at the beginning? Your wife was robbed. The native blushed. Okay, it's you. Lead the way. I'll go to the Black Bear tribe. You won't end up like this. Can the Black Bear tribe still defend its village? After sending a flag to the Blue Lion tribe, Ryan, led by the native, headed in another direction where the terrain was twisted and difficult to walk. There was no surprise. The safe houses of each tribe were hidden around the river. After all, no matter what they ate, they could only drink water. The leader of the Black Bear tribe, Bear, had a more barbaric name, but he had more brains than the Blue Lion tribe. There was no conflict between the two sides. Next time, tell your people to boil the river water before drinking it. You have countless firewood here, so why worry about waste? Ryan gave a few random instructions to calm down the natives who were rolling on the ground and covered in filth. Return the people, and then wait for a while before returning to your tribe. Don't worry, the coalition forces of hundreds of nobles and marquises will soon have conflicts due to uneven distribution, and there will be no large number of troops joining together to massacre your natives. Ryan knew in his heart that this was one reason, but the real reason was that the nobles behind the army knew that if they came again, the wealth they could plunder from these native tribes would be almost zero. They had already plundered once. Would these natives still have treasures? The nobles were smart, they could think of this, and the stupidity of the natives made them have no idea of hiding valuable things at all. After coming and going, wouldn't it be clean? Ryan naturally would not give a second flag. The Blue Lion tribe was for its own gold mine, and he did need to cultivate his own intelligence among the natives. In addition to this reason, he was not sure whether he would have a conflict with the Marquis of the North Wind in this world. The war could not be launched between the Frozen Territory and the Marquis of the North Wind, but the natives could. Has your tribe really not found anything worthy of my attention in all these years? Ryan asked silently. Chapter 272, Plunder in the Dark. Since Ryan thought that there were good things like gold mines and amber jade in this alien plane, it didn't make sense that there were only these two things. The mountain forest world was difficult to develop, so he could only rely on the unintentional encounters of these natives in their lives for countless years. Your gods bid off a mountain in the north, exposing some shiny stones. Have you found anything similar? Ryan took out a magic crystal, which was a product of the Ice Peak forest. The micro-magic crystal mine was almost mined out. In order to support the uninterrupted research of the magicians in his territory, Ryan had to open up the source. It would be too much of a loss to buy it with gold coins. These things are very precious, right? The bear said slyly, making Ryan look over. Why, do you want more? This guy is indeed much smarter than the Green Lion tribe. No wonder the Green Lion tribe has been hammered all these years and has become the first line facing the noble army. If you want to bargain, you must have your own qualifications. Do you have them? Ryan did not refuse or get angry, but looked at the bear calmly. I can tell you where it is, but I need more weapons, tools, and your power to make the beasts obedient. Ryan narrowed his eyes. What did you see? In the previous army, someone used a bottle to pour out liquid to make the messenger of the gods worshipped by our tribe unable to move, and then the next day, that person rode on the back of the black bear messenger. The bear should be talking about a legend. How could this guy secretly observe for so long without being discovered by the legend? Is the legendary knight too weak, or is the guy in front of him talented? Ryan guessed the third possibility. The legendary knight didn't care at all. Magic potion? I don't have this thing either, but you actually plan to control the beast. Can you do it? Ryan had a lot of reason to suspect that the black bear monster was tamed because of the legendary knight's own legendary status, and the magic potion could at most calm the monster down. I tamed a lion before. The bear patted his chest. It seems that you really have some talent. Ryan laughed and looked at the bear. I can help you get the things, but you actually bargained with me, so I have to bargain with you too. The price of weapons will be doubled, the price of tools will be tripled. How much do you think the potion you want is worth? Just like Ryan said, to negotiate conditions, you must be qualified. The bear is smart, but also stupid. He has no room to bargain with Ryan. The bear, who has some brains but not much, naturally understands the ending described by Ryan's words. I can also trade with other nobles, then you can try. It seems that the war a few days ago did not make you sober. You have few choices." Ryan shook his head and told the previous Green Lion tribe natives to continue to lead the way. He was going to the next tribe. "I can tell you where those magic crystals are." The bear still lost. The previous war caused his tribe to lose many people, otherwise he would not have robbed the women of the Green Lion tribe. If the loss continues, he really can't afford it. "Do you still know the name of magic crystal?" The bear nodded. "In fact, the nobles have already discovered it, and they are mining it." "Oh? Who is it?" Ryan looked at the rough outline drawn by the bear on the ground. After Ryan's constant questioning, he finally understood what it was. Wings, a pair of huge wings. "Count Soren, this is the flag of Count Soren's family." Ryan couldn't help laughing. It seems that he is not the only one who has made a fortune like him. But he is very curious about how Count Soren transported the magic crystals without being discovered. There is only one portal. Although there is no possibility for nobles to search other nobles, a large amount of magic crystals will cause fluctuations in the magic factors in the void, which magicians can feel. Ryan didn't believe that there was no magician at the door of Thundercloud Mountain. Unless a small amount of transportation is carried out again and again, of course, the means of hiding are also necessary. The corpse of the magic beast can hide the fluctuations of this part of the magic crystal. Ryan probably thought clearly about Count Soren's means. There is no way. There are only so many methods. Count Soren will not have them, and it is even more impossible to use space magic tools for such things. In this case, the death of the missionary seems to have an answer: to make a fortune in silence, the most needed diversion of attention. The Marquis of Bifen was so anxious that he couldn't let the more powerful magicians guard the portal to the other plane. It was difficult for the magicians of lower levels to observe it. In addition, he was the Earl after all, so those magicians didn't dare to get too close. So, in this case, there are a lot of magic crystals mined here that have not been transported. Ryan's eyes flickered slightly. After leading the way to the location of the magic crystal mine, he arranged for the native to return to the Blue Lion tribe and asked him to bring people. The next day, at night. "Remember, killing is not the main thing. The important thing is to move the magic crystals to me," Ryan said to several knights in the native team. Only they understood Ryan's goal. That night, there were bursts of chaos in the magic crystal mine. Death was inevitable, but they were all slaves and natives under Earl Soren. After spending a lot of time, more than a dozen large boxes were placed in front of Ryan. Looking at the dawn in the sky, Ryan smiled and said, "Thank you for the glory of the morning light." He opened the plane door and sent more than a dozen large boxes, totaling more than 8,000 magic crystals, to the wilderness world. There would naturally be someone there to sort and receive them. "Let's go. Come again next time." In the world of the forest, there are the most beasts, especially after the last forest riot. The territories of many powerful beasts have changed. Ryan encountered a lot of trouble in the forest. There were only 7 or 8 indigenous tribes found, 2 of which no longer trusted Ryan. After a battle, the 2 sides parted unhappily. Judging from the situation, they had fought a war with the coalition forces of Marquis Bifen before Ryan arrived. Most of the rules of enclosure are no longer valid. Those lords also need territory, but there is no extra hunting land for them, so they hunt everywhere. The conflict between the nobles and these lords is likely to break out. Do these lords think they can do it just because they have the background of the great nobles behind them? Ryan laughed. "I'm afraid that more of these bright pioneers heading north from the south will die. How about I start it?" Shaking his head, "That would be too complicated." Ryan planned to start directly in this alien world. Chapter 273, The Fleeting Lords Alliance. Ryan's previous words were not his own guesses. After the coalition returned to Lion County, the conflicts between the lords had already erupted. The reason was the same as when Ryan led the army. Some lords' armies contributed a lot and were strong, but they got almost the same benefits. Some lords suffered heavy losses and were also unwilling to pay so much but gained so little. The coalition was naturally no longer tight. Driven by interests, some lords had already left the coalition after entering here, formed small groups, and began to look for wealth. What they encountered was not only the countless beasts in the mountains and forests, but also the native warriors who could fight them back and forth. These flags should be 5 lords joining forces, with only 120 soldiers in total. Ryan was in the shadow of the dense forest, watching the fight in the distance, waiting for a long time. The natives left, The beasts also fled with injuries, and the soldiers carried them. Squeeze. The long sword was unsheathed, and the soldiers behind him dismounted and rushed towards the battlefield. 120 soldiers, not to mention that 1/6 of them were dead or wounded. Even if they were in their prime, they could not match the strength of the hundreds of at least formal knights behind Ryan. After a burst of wailing and screaming, no soldier escaped. Ryan looked at the natives of the Blue Lion tribe. No one is watching around, right? The native shook his head and said, "The people of the Bluebird tribe have left. Well, 1/10 of the weapons and armor on these corpses are yours, and the rest is the wealth I advanced to your Blue Lion tribe." The natives were overjoyed and quickly rushed to the battlefield and started to pick them up. Most of these soldiers from the south were wearing cloth armor. After all, not every place produces iron or clean up the traces of horse hooves. Let's go. Ryan didn't need to stay. The battlefield here broke out on the edge of the territory that Ryan had circled out at the beginning. At that time, it was inevitable that he, Baron Ryan, would be suspected. But is he afraid? In terms of title and strength, what strength does Baron Ryan have? In terms of background, who doesn't have a noble father behind him? However, there are quite a few descendants of the Myers family. 2 of the 5 lords are from the Myers family. Of course, they cannot be direct descendants. The only direct descendant is Valenti Myers. These lords are the grandsons and nephews of the current Grand Duke Myers, or simply the descendants of the meritorious followers who were given the name Myers by him. In the previous letters of the Clayton family, a child of the Clayton family was mentioned. However, after coming to the Northwind province for so long, his brother has not come to visit this baron. It's interesting. Earl Clayton meant that the 2 of them should take care of each other, but obviously, his brother is a little embarrassed. But Ryan thought about it, and according to that guy himself, it seems that he is also in the top 3 among this group of lords. And Earl Clayton is all round and fair to his children, indifferent. Therefore, that guy is also partially refined by the dragon heart. In the future, there is almost no difference between the Holy Land and the Sky Knight. It is normal for such people to become nobles and have some ambition. Of course, it is not ruled out that the guy had also laughed at him for becoming the Baron of the Frozen Territory, but now he was also assigned to the Northwind province, and he was only a lord. Ho ha ho ha. In the 10 days in the other world, all the wealth Ryan found was sent to the wilderness world of Svediferi, so his team naturally returned empty-handed. Well, don't forget that Baron Ryan already had a team to develop the other world. Every time a large amount of firewood was transported out, it was very attractive. Many people suspected that he used the firewood to hide something good. Baron Ryan went to the other world for a walk every day, and this time he did not bring back the magic beast. He took out his unhappiness on the legendary knight. Knight Mulan, I wonder if you found any traces of the divine magic beast when you went to the other plane last time, Ryan asked. Of course, he did not have the strength to question a legend. Is Baron Ryan also looking for it? Knight Mulan looked at Baron Ryan in front of him. He was a legend, and his status was not inferior to that of a great noble. He had heard this name too many times from Marcus B. Feng before, so he subconsciously paid attention to him. He looked more like a noble than Marcus B. Feng. Of course, my father, Earl Clayton, was very interested after hearing about this. I also want to see what a magical beast that has swallowed divinity is like. Is it possible for it to become a beast god? Knight Mulan was frightened by Ryan's words, and his movement stopped. Baron Ryan, even if it becomes the most powerful legendary magical beast, the chance of becoming a beast god is almost non-existent. Even in the dying world, it has no hope of becoming a legend. Is that so? Ryan nodded, and then looked at Knight Mulan. So, you found its trace, right? Knight Mulan fell silent. He didn't expect that he would be exposed so easily. You are as wise as your father, Knight Mulan said with a deep breath. I found it, but I didn't catch it. It's very smart and is taken care of by that world. Every time I was about to catch it, I would be interrupted. Perhaps, it will be exposed only after that world is completely trapped in the northern winter. Can it be found in 10 years? Ryan shook his head. If that's the case, it will be useless. 10 years is still a long time for him. It won't take that long. It's already difficult for new monsters to be born in the other dimensional world. At most 2 or 3 years, after the monsters in it are cleared, that world will not be able to stop the nobles from looking for it. It can't escape. If it goes well, a lot of divinity can be stripped from it. Can divinity be taken away by force? Ryan was a little shocked by the current ability of the Empire. Baron Ryan stayed on Thundercloud Mountain for many days by communicating with Knight Mulan. The nobles were a little puzzled. The nobles of the fiefdom actually liked to walk around. But they couldn't control Master Ryan. Ryan also waited for the scene he wanted. The conflict of interests between the lords also began to erupt. After all, they are still nobles, and their identity as believers of the God of Light is just for the plan of the Empire. Nobles will do things according to the rules of nobles. When the interests are not fully divided, the lords begin to join forces in groups of 3 or 5. This is not what Ryan cares about. What he cares about is that in such an environment, the development team of the Marquis of the North Wind has also suffered a severe blow. This Marquis brought a lot of extraordinary followers, but the soldiers under him are not many. As for the fiefdom, it's funny. Don't doubt the damage that the previous wars brought to the territory of the former Earl of Weiss. The young and strong were drawn and died on the battlefield. Later, the nobles made a lot of slaves in the form of compensation and sent them back to their own territories. The time for this land to be exploited by the Marquis of the North Wind will have to wait until 10 or 20 years later. He won't have too many soldiers to use in the development of the other world. The total number of the coalition forces is also decreasing. The coalition forces of 3,000 soldiers before have gradually become about 2,000. The lords also need soldiers to patrol their own territories, even though there are no assassinations from the church now. Chapter 274 This is my wealth. 4,000 words. You said I killed your army. No, you said your army died clean on my land. That's not your land. What do you mean? You actually invaded my land. I have reason to suspect that the wealth you got from the other dimension world before was robbed of my land and wealth. Ryan loudly questioned the 5 lords in front of him, causing the lords who wanted to question Ryan to retreat continuously. You guys, do you really understand the castle law between nobles? That is my wealth. You actually secretly plundered my wealth. This is war. Understand, war. Ryan kicked a lord to the ground with 1 foot. Very thoughtful. The 2 lords of the Myers family were not so embarrassed. The lords had just arrived in the North Wind province and had not yet experienced the local customs and customs here. There were many reasons why they were arrogant. For example, their identities were canonized by the royal family and they had the identity of bright pioneers, but the latter was useless. For the nobles of the empire, they all considered themselves pioneers. The former, whether it makes sense or not, is 2 different opinions. Master Ryan was also a baron of the fiefdom who was crowned by the emperor himself. In terms of background, Master Ryan was also a great noble in the south, which was no worse than these guys, and even much better. In terms of title, he was still a baron. The biggest reason for these guys was that after Earl Weiss fell, the nobles of the North Wind province began to follow the 2 earls and deepened their ties with the nobles in the south, such as the recent marriages. Therefore, when facing the descendants of these lords, the nobles of the North Wind province did not say anything. The alternate world was very large, and most of the land they circled was not even developed by themselves, so they turned a blind eye. In general, it was a demand relationship. The nobles of the North Wind province wove their own family's spider web between the demand and the southern nobles. So, they took care of these lords a little bit. But Baron Ryan didn't need these. He was originally the heir of a great noble in the south, and his noble network was connected to the Earl of Clayton's family. This was a blood relationship, not a simple marriage. So, why should he take care of these lords who were born out of political struggles? With a kick, Ryan's current strength was surprisingly great, and the lord rolled on the ground twice. How dare you slander a baron? I think you haven't adapted to the status of aristocrats yet. Why did the royal family crown you rubbish with the title of aristocrats? Most of the political struggles cannot be put on the surface, but Ryan's direct questioning of the royal family still shocked these lords. Ryan sneered in his heart as he watched this scene. Sure enough, these guys didn't adapt to this status. Maybe they were just cannon fodder sent here. No wonder they didn't feel bad when they died. The first rule of political struggles between the nobles of the empire is that it is not a rare thing for nobles to question the royal family. Otherwise, the royal family is so powerful that there would be no such thing as political struggle. Teacher Ryan, who taught these guys a lesson, was a little unkind. Without any evidence, you framed a noble. I can send you to prison and let the dependent nobles behind you redeem you. After all, there is still a gap between the lord and the 5th-class nobles. These lords did not have any evidence, but they came to question Ryan after they had asked around and found that none of them were the suspects. Windfall, especially windfall without consequences, is a great joy for anyone. For the nobles of the North Wind Province, the wealth brought by the war is windfall, and similarly, the discovery of the alternate dimension world is also a windfall. When there were no other conflicts and topics in the North Wind Province, the alternate dimension world became the center of everyone's attention. The news that Ryan taught several lords a lesson spread quickly, and at the same time, it also made the nobles begin to examine their various decisions in the alternate dimension world. As for the handling of windfall, since it was not a big deal to get it, it didn't matter if I gave some of it away to win over the relationship in the south. Anyway, I picked up the wealth, it was easy to come by, and it was easy to spend. In this matter, the nobles of the North Wind naturally had connections with some nobles in the south, and the spider web of the noble circle had begun to spread. However, as time went on, after the nobles developed their original places, when they had no wealth, they would of course choose to go to new places for development. For a time, because of the previous generosity, it became the most direct contradiction. Originally I allowed you to hunt in the area I circled, but now there is no precious wealth in the area I developed, so I want to change the place. You also want to change the place, and we chose the same place? Well, your side, my side, anyway, this piece of land is big enough, and there is enough space for 200 or 300 of us. But you actually found a vein of minerals and didn't tell me? The dignity of the Carlo family cannot be desecrated. For the glory of Donal, the soldiers fought in the mountains and forests, the knight's sword slashed through the armor of the opponent, and the spears pierced the throats that were not strong. In the land where the mines had not yet been formed, the soldiers could only calm down and fear death after the blood. Baron Ryan still did not leave Thundercloud Mountain. The communication with the legendary knight Mulan made him clear the fog on his knight training path. So, he also waited for the angry nobles on both sides. What the hell? You fought because of a copper mine? Ryan was shocked, and then a little angry. Baron Carlo, have you forgotten something? After the victory of the war, the ownership of the alternate world and all the wealth belonged to every noble of ours. Even if it's a piece of stone, it's fair to share it with all the nobles, but before that, no one cared about what they got from it, but the veins are different. A vein mines a huge amount of raw materials, which must belong to every noble. Ryan's questioning made Baron Carlo a little embarrassed. My soldiers only discovered it a few days ago, and I haven't had time to tell the nobles yet. Ryan looked to the other side. Lord Donal, according to the Division of Victory, that piece of land belongs to Baron Carroll. Why did your army invade his territory? What do you mean his territory? The alternate world belongs to every noble of Northwind. I am also a noble, and I have the right to develop the alternate world. All the wealth I get belongs to me. Ryan nodded. That's right. But this alternate dimension world is the property of us nobles after the victory. You heard what I said just now. That copper mine belongs to every noble in the Northwind Province, not just you. Ryan slowly took out a scroll. Come, let's see how much of this copper mine belongs to me. I won't bother with you for stealing my wealth before. In the eyes of the two nobles, Ryan successfully witnessed his 6% ownership of the copper mine. The two earls each occupy 10%. I don't know if they care about this. Ryan put away the scroll, looked at the two nobles in front of him, and said seriously, in order to practice the noble virtues of the nobles, the people I authorized will contact you soon, and then they will be responsible for supervising all the output from the copper mine. After Ryan finished speaking, he walked outside. He was originally here to watch the fun. Wait, Baron Ryan, this is our mineral property. It's not yours, but the nobles of the entire Northwind Province, Ryan corrected. Behind him, the two nobles looked at each other, somewhat angry. Baron Ryan, if you find resources on your land, do they also belong to all the nobles? Lord Donal said. He originally came to the alternate dimension world, so of course he didn't care who the mineral vein was supposed to belong to. Of course, but you may have to wait. My people are only chopping wood in the alternate dimension and haven't found mineral veins yet. This winter may be particularly cold. You might as well harvest some firewood for preparation. Who cares about that little bit of garbage? The Lord was very angry. Then your firewood also belongs to every noble. Ryan turned his head, blinked, and laughed. Okay, all the beasts hunted by all the nobles from the alternate dimension before will be divided according to the proportion. I don't know if I can spit out what I have eaten. Only real estate can be divided. For example, mineral veins require everyone to work together to build a mine and arrange slaves to mine. It is difficult for a single family. Is this lord so stupid? I really thought that I came to the North Wind Province to be a lord and to bully others. The simple folk customs here are not only reflected in the lower class. If it weren't for the great value of gold mines and amber jade, Ryan would have called a large number of people to develop the mines together. Things like copper mines are real wealth only when they are in hand as soon as possible. The lifespan of the alternate dimension world is only 10 years, so how can they wait for them to play slowly? Ryan blessed those natives, and they are also extraordinary, so the natives will develop gold mines faster. Facts have proved that when there are more participants in the alternate dimension world, the meaning of the contract is, to a certain extent, a piece of waste paper. Baron Ryan wants 6% of each mine in just a few words? What is he thinking? Baron Carroll has summoned his own army. How can he make his mines public? Even Lord Donald's soldiers were driven away. It's funny. Have the soldiers coming from the south experienced fighting? The current soldiers and troops of the North Wind Province are all veterans who have survived blood and fire. This mineral vein belongs to my Carroll family. The Baron refused to give up an inch of land. The value of this windfall was too great. Even if it was difficult for him to do it alone, he could not easily give it to others. As this matter fermented, the entire alternate dimension world discovered a lot of conflicts caused by resources. For a time, the North Wind Province was once again on the verge of a war. It seems that after the value of the windfall exceeded expectations, the nobles will not continue to be friendly. Ryan smiled. Fortunately, there are not many mineral veins in the mountain forest world. Only 7 or 8 have been discovered. Even if there are still hidden ones, they will not be as many as the iron mines in the North Wind Province. The problem is that half of the 8 mineral veins that have been made public are magic crystal veins. These magic crystal mines are the last struggle of that world. At present, it seems that there is not much meaning in the struggle. Instead, it is a bargain for the nobles. After communicating with Knight Mulan again, this legendary knight gave his own insights. He had traveled to other better alternate dimensions and had a lot of experience. The magic crystal mine looks like a medium-sized or large-sized magic crystal mine. No noble in the North Wind Province will give it up. The great southern nobles behind the lords should also support a group of forces. The lords' gains in the other world should be partly sent to those great nobles. The royal family will also get involved. The 2 earls and the Marquess of the North Wind also need a lot of wealth. From this point of view, the war in the other world is inevitable. Ryan unraveled the mystery and could already see the bloody storm in the other world. A few days later, Ryan saw the arrival of Earl Soren's army on Thundercloud Mountain. Obviously, after the previous plunder in the Dark Night was known to the Earl, he had already reacted. Find you something else to do, Ryan smiled and whispered in a low voice. That night, at the gathering of the nobles, Ryan mentioned it casually. It seems that Lord Count Soren's army has arrived at Thundercloud Mountain today. I wonder why. I heard that the Earl's slaves were attacked by natives in the other world and suffered heavy losses. A baron spoke up. There is a circle among the nobles. With the rise of Ryan, there will naturally be some nobles around him who are willing to listen to his plans. Of course, these nobles are not completely loyal to him. At present, there is a circle. When Ryan is not around, the nobles can also be another circle. Native attack? That group of natives can even step on the lord from the south. Why do we need so many soldiers? Ryan smiled and shook his head. His smile made people think deeply. 2 days passed, and the portal to the other world opened. Ryan entered it again with his 100 attendants. Walking between the mountains and forests, Ryan's eyes became indifferent, and there was no hypocrisy among the nobles. A large number of soldiers broke into his territory. Find them out. The warhorse shuttled and soon arrived at the Blue Lion tribe. Not long after, dozens of native warriors disappeared into the mountains and forests, and brought back news in the evening. Baron, the natives found Earl Soren's soldiers by the river. Ryan narrowed his eyes and asked after a long time, last time, the Blue Lion tribe said that they threw my things into the river. Did they pick them all up? The soldier left for the natives and returned a moment later. Not yet. The natives said they couldn't go deep into the river and only got half back. Ryan took a deep breath, pressed his palm on the hilt of the knight's sword, and then slowly drew out the weapon. Tell me how many people there are, Rumble. The river rushed. In this barbaric world, the big rivers themselves represent danger. This river, which almost runs through the entire mountain forest world, nourishes all the natives on both sides and the beasts in the mountains and forests. It is also relatively flat here, So when the iron hooves of the warhorse stepped on the land, the army stationed by the river was extremely panicked. Kill them all, Ryan reined in his horse and crushed the simple fence. He raised the burning knight sword and slashed it across the chest of a knight. Hundreds of servants behind him swarmed over his position and instantly flooded the entire camp. Chapter 275 Unable to conceal the threat. The difference between an apprentice knight and an ordinary person is the years of training, but an army of 100 well-trained apprentice knights can defeat 10 times the number of enemies. Moreover, most of Ryan's servants are formal knights. The breathing method makes them stronger. Even when facing those sharp spears, the knight sword in their hands can cut them off smoothly. The charge of the warhorse at the riverside is devastating. Many soldiers even jumped into the river because of fear of the cavalry and disappeared in the surging waves. In less than 30 minutes, Ryan was already standing in the center of the mess, looking down at the knights kneeling in front of him. "Tell me, why did you appear in my territory?" Ryan asked calmly. The kneeling knight did not dare to look up, his eyes flickered. He must not tell the truth. The outbreak of war between nobles is not a rare thing. Many times, it is common for nobles to start wars with each other because of land and money. If he was a noble, it would be fine, but he is not, so once it involves one of the two things, land and money, he will definitely die. We entered the other dimension under the order of the Marquis to protect the Marquis's territory. We just passed by here. Oh, Ryan laughed and said, "You happen to stay on my land? And you stayed for so long." As he was talking, a soldier beside him had brought a large animal skin bag from the ruins. When he opened it, the golden light confirmed Ryan. "It seems that I did not kill the wrong person." The knight finally despaired and shouted loudly, "Baron Ryan, you can't kill me. I am the squire of Earl Soren and the knight of the Earl. I don't want to, but the value of the gold mine is really too high." Ryan fell with a sword and cut off the knight's head. Indeed, the value of the gold mine is really too scary. Once it is exposed, all the nobles in the entire Northwind province will flock to it. At that time, no one will care about the noble's face. After all, even if it is a small gold mine, if it can be fully mined, it will be worth at least 1 million gold coins. Ryan didn't want to expose it and didn't dare to expose it. He didn't even dare to mine on a large scale. He could only use the natives to dig. In the history he knew, there were countless wars that broke out because of mines, resources, and wealth, and some of them could even develop into war that destroyed a country. There are not a few noble conflicts in the Northwind province every year because of iron mines, and iron mines can be said to be the lowest value vein in the Northwind province. If it is a silver mine, it can arouse the greed of all nobles. The value of gold mines will definitely trigger all conflicts and war potential. All dealt with. The murderous intent in Ryan's eyes has not completely dissipated. It is the first time that the soldiers have seen such eyes from their lords. One by one, they lowered their heads, tied the bodies to stones and threw them into the river, and then buried the entire camp with earth and stones. The nobles' means of investigation were originally very rough, and this was still a different world plane. Count Soren would not be able to find out that this army was completely wiped out here. But Ryan did not put his hope on the so-called evidence. The nobles praised their own glory and splendor, and every word they said to the outside world was about the noble and just character of the nobles. However, as the pinnacle of power, how could the nobles be so bright and just? Earl Soren might never find evidence, but he could guess who in the other world had the ability to kill an army of 500 people. Baron Ryan's name must be at the top of the list. Even the fact that this army appeared in the territory circled by Ryan was probably because Earl Soren suspected that it was Ryan who had robbed the magic crystal mine before, because he brought a full 100 extremely elite knight attendants. This force was enough. They came to find the lost magic crystal mine, because at the location of the portal, they did not find that Ryan's team had taken out the magic crystal, but by accident, they found gold or the value of magic crystal and gold mine. After all, the former has a relatively single function, and it is difficult to tell which one is higher and which one is lower under the same amount, but the problem is that it is difficult to equal the amount. No matter how small the scale of the gold mine is, it is much richer than the magic crystal vein. Earl Soren will never let the death of 500 people go. If he doesn't want to make things public, then he can only fight in the other dimension. I don't know if he has the courage, Ryan laughed. In this mountain forest world, the combat effectiveness of the Dragon Blood warriors under Earl Soren was greatly reduced. Ryan found the leader of the Blue Lion tribe, Cao. This native leader had already been shocked by the combat effectiveness of Ryan's soldiers and was a little afraid at this moment. "Tell your people that no one is allowed to tell what happened today, otherwise, I will deal with you," Ryan threatened, and then said calmly, maybe you don't know yet, you only have a few years left in this world. You have lived here for many years, and there are many old people in your tribe, so you should know it very well. The white disaster in the north is eroding the mountains and forests where you are every year, isn't it? The speed of winter is getting faster and faster, and it will soon submerge the mountains and forests where your tribe is located. By then, everything will die in the cold. There are only a few years left. By then, you will only have two choices, either to die in this world, or to leave here and live in a safe place. The indigenous population of the mountain forest world is still not small. Population is also a resource for the nobles. The more people there are, the faster they will develop. Even if they only rely on farming, there will be more fields to plant if there are more people. There are a lot of wastelands in the territory of each noble, and there is no fear of insufficient land. If these natives don't want to die, they will eventually enter the North Wind province and become the people of the nobles. How to choose at that time will become a difficult problem. Ryan reminded Xiao, just to make these natives behave themselves, maybe they will become his people in the future. You should think about the future of your tribe. Ryan left here with his attendants and headed towards the territory of Earl Soren. Since he had already decided, he couldn't waste a magic crystal mine in Earl Soren's hands. Boom. There are still flat lands in the mountains and forests. If it was just an ordinary warhorse, it might be troublesome, but the warhorse in the north is an extraordinary species. This time Ryan no longer hid. When the army arrived, the slaves and guards in the mines here were completely panicked. The soldiers knew Baron Ryan. So, after a short resistance, after several knights died, the remaining soldiers all surrendered. This is the reputation and prestige Ryan had gained in the previous wars. From now on, you are all my slaves. Ryan waved his hand and changed the ownership of everyone to himself. The slaves were numb to this. They were traded at will as part of the wealth. The soldiers were a little scared, but they didn't dare to resist. In order to survive, people's bottom line can really change constantly. In the next few days, Ryan stayed in the magic crystal mine, watching everyone start to mine the magic crystal mine with the most efficiency. On the last day, all the mined magic crystal mines were sent to Swadivary. Take all these slaves to the Blue Lion tribe and arrange for wood cutting and quarrying. Ryan knew that everything he did here had too many traces and could not be concealed for too long. In this case, it would be a pity to kill these slaves. They were also a great fortune. Kill all the trainee knights among those soldiers. Ryan waved his hand, and the last batch of possible traitors were all cleared. As a soldier, not every soldier was qualified to swear allegiance to Earl Soren, but the trainee knights who were treated favorably by noble lords must be loyal to their lords. Why? Not to mention that the spirit of chivalry has not been broken. Just one point is enough. These people must have lived a better life in Earl Solen's territory than in Baron Ryan's territory. As soldiers loyal to Earl Solen, they were able to become apprentice knights. While being loyal to the Lord also gave them money, power, houses, land, and beautiful women. Over time, the blood of these people has even formed a small family in the territory, rather than a simple family unit. In this case, how could they not be loyal to Earl Solen? If they turned their heads and pledged allegiance to Baron Ryan, they would lose all these. How could they be more loyal to Baron Ryan? They were already the powerful class in the earldom, so there was no possibility for them to betray. On the contrary, the risk of ordinary soldiers and slaves who were malnourished at first glance was much smaller. Ordinary soldiers were recruited from families. In many cases, they had to prepare their own weapons and food. Slaves did not even have the qualifications for loyalty. Their value units were measured in gold coins, silver coins, and even copper coins, which were themselves a kind of tradable wealth. Therefore, their loyalty to Earl Soren is not absolute, and may not be very high, which makes it possible for them to become the subjects of Baron Ryan. Once again, walking out of the playing gate, the soldiers were stained with a lot of evil spirits, so that other noble teams around them did not dare to get too close. As always, Ryan's personal guards and attendants did not gain anything. Only the slaves and civilian teams of the Frozen Land territory passed through the playing gate with a large amount of firewood. More than one noble had laughed at Baron Ryan's short-sightedness. The value of each opening of the playing gate was not even a fraction of these firewood. This is indeed the case, because with the outbreak of conflicts between some nobles, the mineral resources in the mountain forest world were made public. And there were many more vehicles transporting ore in the noble teams that crossed the plain gate. The nobles have begun to cash in the land resources of the other plain world on a large scale and send them back to the North Wind province. Ryan spent a long time on Thundercloud Mountain and found that many teams were stained with blood. Obviously, their journey was not peaceful. Go back to the frozen land and bring another 300 soldiers. Ryan handed the Baron ring on his hand to a Centurion. There was no need to worry about the loyalty of this Silver Knight from the Clayton family. There was no surprise. On the third day in Thundercloud Mountain, Ryan waited for the questioning from Earl Soren. The Badly Sky Knight led the soldiers to Thundercloud County. If he had not communicated with the Marquis of the North Wind in advance, the governor of the province would have suspected that Earl Soren was going to start a war with him. Baron Ryan, the Honorable Earl Soren asked me to ask you why you want to start a noble war. Ryan looked at Knight Badly with a puzzled look. Knight Badly, what are you doing? What do you mean? What is Earl Soren going to do? His expression was blank, and the Marquis of the North Wind next to him couldn't help but look at Knight Badly in confusion. What happened? Knight Badly took a deep breath, and the powerful knight spirit enveloped him, and his voice was full of chills. Baron Ryan, you killed hundreds of soldiers belonging to Count Soren in the other dimension world. This incident will be regarded by the Soren family as a war to the death. This is a provocation to the Soren family and Lord Count Soren. Ryan turned his head and looked at the Marquis of the North Wind. Lord Governor, I think that Count Soren is not a noble who casually frames a noble. Maybe there is something we don't know about it. The governor of the North Wind province has the power and the obligation to mediate the conflicts among the nobles. The royal family of the empire knows what the nobles in the empire are like, and noble wars are not uncommon. The Marquis of the North Wind coughed and finally became serious. Knight Badly, do you have evidence to prove that Baron Ryan massacred Count Soren's army? Asking this question, the Marquis of the North Wind felt a little absurd. A baron killed the Earl's army? Among the nobles who entered the other world last time, only Baron Ryan had the strength to kill the Earl's army, Knight Badly said with his head raised. He came here on behalf of Earl Soren, and his status was not inferior to others. So, there is no evidence. Ryan snorted coldly, stood up and scolded Knight Badly. Knight, you'd better know what you are talking about. If you slander a noble, your best outcome will be exiled to the plane of death. I come on behalf of Earl Soren, the noble Earl, to respond to the war you provoked. Baron Ryan, I will enter the other world to find evidence, and I will not come out for a short time. Badly left a word and led an army of thousands of soldiers through the plain gate. Ryan was a little angry and looked at the Marquis of the North Wind. Governor, he dared to threaten me. He threatened me. Baron Ryan, calm down. He would never dare to kill a noble, even in the other world. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.